Here's our agenda. I'm going to give you an overview of Autodesk Construction Cloud, or ACC, show you how to gain access to projects on the web, which you'll need to do. It's very important that you do that before you try to go to the job site and access the project. So definitely make sure that you log in online, like I'm about to show you, before you do that. We'll go over the different workflows inside of Autodesk Build that have been modernized for you all. And then we'll get into the mobile app. I'll bring my phone on the screen and we'll show some of the mobile workflows and some best practices and things around that. And then finally, we'll talk about how to get support. There's a few different outlets for you on getting support. And then we'll have any kind of closing discussion, talk about next steps and that sort of a thing. So that said, without further ado, let's talk about Autodesk Construction Cloud. So years ago, Autodesk had this vision of creating a platform that would serve as a single source of truth, a true single source of truth, where we wouldn't have point products that we have to log into 10 different places to kind of get through our day, but actually having a single project ecosystem that leverages best-in-class technologies that support everything from design, planning, build or construction, and operations. And with that shared data across the phases, we're all connected and able to make informed decisions during design, construction, and also turnover of that data for operations and owners. And during the project, we're able to analyze that data to start to identify, prioritize, and resolve problems earlier in the life cycle. So it is one true ecosystem across the board. Now that vision today is very much a reality. Back when they had that vision, years and years ago, there were a lot of technologies out there that kind of did some things really, really well. Well, Autodesk has taken kind of the cream of the crop and all the different bits and pieces of what makes those technologies successful and combine them into the unified interface that we're going to be looking at today. So it is a true unification of these workflows. So kind of expanding that a little bit, on the left, we have some packages that leverage more of the design side. Then we've got our procurement tools, and then Autodesk Build is going to be the focus of today. But you can see that within it, it's still one single project. So moving from the DC team to the field team, you don't have to shift files around and kind of move data and move people and things like that. You just continue working within the same environment, and that's kind of the beauty of it there. When I was in industry, we would spend a lot of time just sending information to people and retrieving information, recording it, and then relaying that information downstream. My wife will tell you every single day that I'm perfect, and I'm really not. I miss a lot of different things as a human. And so I imagine I missed a lot of stuff doing those transfers. So not only is it time consuming, it's error and risk prone. And so having the data in one single ecosystem is kind of the benefit here. And I was just kidding. My wife wouldn't tell you that I'm perfect, but I like to think that. Anyway, so moving on, what we're focusing on today are those Autodesk Build workflows. So very specific to the site crews. So, some of the things that we can do there is overall project management, setting the project controls and responding to those sorts of things, as well as managing quality, managing safety, preparing for closeout, and then overall, our document management, all the different files and things that have something to do with the project, having access to that and making sure that the right people also have access to it, and that the people that shouldn't don't. So that's kind of some of the controls that we've got there. Any questions so far on kind of the overall purpose of ACC before we actually jump into the day-to-day here? Or Brian, if I've missed anything. Brian's always good at supporting with some ironisms and things as we go, but all right.
I think we're good.
All right, so let's go ahead and jump into how to access your projects. So if you're going to write down a bookmark for websites, it's right there in the middle on the left, acc.autodesk.com. That's going to take you to all the different workflows that we're using here today. It does support single sign-on, so just use your Myron credentials, whatever you use to log into your normal Myron software and access. Use that same thing, and you already have a license. All you need to do is log in. The one thing that you'll need to do, though, after you log in, is update your profile, specifically your phone number. I'll show you how to do that in just a bit. Firefox and anything that's Chrome-based are the supported web browser styles for Autodesk Construction Cloud. The good news is Firefox is the standard within Myron, so you shouldn't have to download or install anything extra. You just fire up Firefox and log in and start working. Then, of course, there's that bookmark that I mentioned. If you wanted to, jump ahead and download the mobile application to your mobile device, to your phone, an iPad, a Samsung tablet, that sort of thing, got a couple links there, or you can just go to your app store and look for Autodesk Construction Cloud, and it'll download that app for you. And we'll explore that here in just a little bit. So let's look at how we update our user profile. So I'm logged in here. I'm going to go ahead and log out so you can see that whole process. So again, it's acc.autodesk.com. You might receive an email with an invitation that you can click on that link and it'll launch you over here inside of Firefox. At this point, it'll actually kind of steer you towards your Myron credentials. I'll just use mine. I don't have Myron credentials. So I'll log in, and then it will put you at the project landing page over here. We'll talk about this in just a little bit. The first thing for the profile settings, after you're logged in, if you go to the top right, you should see either your picture or your initials, and then go ahead and click right here on profile settings. You don't need to bookmark this or save this address. You can always get it from that same menu. But if you scroll down just a bit, here's where you put in your phone number. And then if you have a mailing address that's not the office address, maybe it's the job site trailer or something like that where you prefer to get your mail, go ahead and put that in there and then update your phone number. The beauty of that is, if you change your phone number and you're on 10 different projects, you don't have to call 10 different project managers to update them. It will go out, or it'll update all projects that you're on as soon as you hit save over here. So update your phone number, update your preferred mailing address, and then ultimately that's what shows up in your profile when people go to look up your contact information inside of projects and things like that. While I'm here, I'll just kind of show this page. So Brian put the link in the chat there. If you can go ahead and click on that link and save it. It's the only link that you're going to need for the web access. When you land here, this is the project page. So all projects that you're invited to will be listed here. You probably won't see this create project button or a couple of these guys up here, depending on your level of access. But you can search for projects here. So you can search for, the project that you're looking for. You can also filter by, different projects and things like that. There's also this quick access tool, and we'll kind of talk about these different little modules here. For this training, build is safe, and that is the default. If you just want to get to files, you can go to docs. If you're some of the users kind of doing the submittal log, you can get to auto specs there, but otherwise this will let you jump right into your project. Another thing that's on this page is the My Home tab. So this is where you can go and see where all the projects that you're invited to exist geographically, and then any action items that are assigned to you across those projects. And so, for example, I can click on this 103 issues, and I can see that this one is pending inside of this project. And if I click that, it'll actually log me into that project and bring me to this specific issue. So this is just kind of a good little glance across all of the projects that you're on and different action items. Down here, we have bookmarks. You can customize this and add other bookmarks to things. Like I like to bookmark the health dashboard so I can see what the server statuses are and stuff like that. But if you have other bookmarks, maybe SharePoint or something like that, you can load those in here so it's all accessible from this one place. This page is customizable just for you. In other words, what you do here, only you see. You're not going to change it for anybody else, so it's pretty safe. If you click on customize, and then go to card library, there are a bunch of other cards that you can load in here, like Drone Deploy and Power BI and things like that. So you can load those cards onto here, and it's just another lens when you first log in for your My Home of sort of what your project worldview sort of looks like there. So yeah, any questions, comments, concerns on any of that? All right, so let's go ahead and move on. So now we're going to talk about build project workflows on the web. And we've got some of those key workflows listed off to the right there. And we'll take those in little bite-sized chunks as we go. So first, we're going to talk about home, kind of what you see in the project home, which, not to be confusing, the page that we're just looking at is My Home. So that's, your home across all projects. But each project itself has its own home tab that we'll explore, and that's the one that we're going to look at. And then we'll look at sheets. So sheets is where all of your drawings go. And then we'll explore files, and that's where specs and really any other file that you use on a project would go there. And by any, I mean most. If it's a file like an executable or a DLL or something like that that can contain a virus, those aren't supported, but by and large, every other file type that you need for projects should be supported there. And over 70 are actually viewable inside the platform there. So pretty helpful thing. So let's go ahead and jump into those items and keep moving on. So back in my web browser, I'm going to go to projects, and then I'm going to search for our training project that we'll use for the rest of today. Yep, that's that one. And then this logs me into Autodesk Build on this specific project. So that's where that acc.autodesk.com lists all of your projects. Really easy to get to all your projects from that same landing page. Now, what we're looking at here is the project home. And on this page, you can see this project progress. It's just a graphic thing. It doesn't tie into schedule or anything like that. The admins would set it up with the different milestones so you could just visually see how you're tracking according to those milestones. Off to the right, you have recent activity. So maybe new sheets were uploaded or new photos like we've got here, or something was assigned to you in this project. You can see that there. Quick links. Now, this usually only shows up to the project admins because only they have access to add sheets or add members. Generally speaking, that's all been developed by Brian and his team. Off to the right of that, we've got our site weather, so we can see kind of what today's weather looks like. We can click on the show more and see the extended forecast. This information is related to the location of the project. And so when you do your daily logs and things like that, it'll automatically record the weather there for you. So it's one less step that you have to go through. It's just going to pull that out and put it on your report automatically. Now, scrolling down just a bit, you have work status. And at the top, you've got your assigned work. So these are things that are in your court right now. So they're sitting on your desk waiting for you to do something with it. And then down here, we've got project assigned work. So these are things that have come across your desk. Maybe you created it or you've passed it on to someone else, and sort of the status of those things. And so what it'll do is if, say, for example, issues, which would be a strong point of communication, we'll talk about that in a bit. If I was to click this, it'll filter the entire list of issues to just this one that I've got that's overdue. So it helps me just zero in on my critical path without really having to dig through it and things like that. Even though it's easy to filter and create reports, this just makes it that much more accessible. Now, to the right of that, which we'll cover in a bit more detail later on, is the sort of, just a running activity list on Bridge. So Bridge itself, you can access it down here, and there's a couple other places that we can access it. Again, I'll show you what that looks like. But this just shows that people have shared sheets or files with other projects, or other projects have shared those with this project. And so what Bridge allows you to do is automatically sequence data between projects. So you might have a master project, for example, maybe it's a campus, and then you've got several buildings on that campus, and the master sheets, master files are kind of the same. instead of downloading those and uploading those to all those building projects, you can have it just automatically sync to those projects. And so if you update the master project, it'll automatically copy it to those other projects. It's just kind of an example. A bridge is a great utility for that. We will cover that in a little bit of detail. For some of the participants on the line, Brian, I'm going to go off script a little bit. I want to show Autodesk Insight. There's Project Insight, and then there's also Executive Insight. What this is a series of dashboards and analytics for your project health and just kind of how things are going. Obviously, I haven't accessed it for a bit. But if we look here, we can have, cards around quality issues, and you can see, kind of project issues, top items that are there, your traction on how you're adding as well as resolving issues, total issues today, root causes. So right now, other than undefined, we've got 4 issues related to design errors. And so you can really quickly look here and see different metrics that you want to track. If we look on the safety tab, we can see, some things related to safety. And you can customize these as well to be, specific to what you need to see on projects, and have these different dashboards automatically calculating. And so when you log into the project, you go to Insight, you can see overall what's going on with the project. There is another version of this across all projects. It's called the Executive Overview, but it's really similar, but except it shows you kind of a list of activities across all projects and just general health and risk associated with those. So anyway, wanted to take a little side road real quick and show you that these visuals are here. We can take that a bit further. We have some data analysts that create Power BI dashboards. So if there's specific metrics that you want to track, that's kind of your own custom lens into that, then Power BI is another way to kind of have that. And then you can show these Power BI dashboards right on top of your Insight boards as well. So anyway, want to take a little side road there for you. But coming back to script, so moving on from home, let's jump into sheets. So again, sheets are where the drawings go. There is a tool called collections, which is kind of like creating folders for those sheets. If you had multiple buildings, like I was saying, and they all have the same sheets, so you have 4 different buildings, they all have sheet G000 or A101. Even though they're different buildings, you can create a collection for each of those buildings. You can also create collections for bid set versus shop drawings and lift drawings and that sort of a thing. Or you can do collections based off of phases or steps. You don't have to use collections. This project here doesn't use collections, but you would see a little bar off to the left here with little folders before you get to your sheets. That said, all of your drawings can go here. And, we already kind of talked about all the different types of drawings that are on a project. They'll be organized how the project admins have kind of set up the order of the sheets based off of, the disciplines of the sheets. So this one is set up general to civil to landscape to structure and so on. And so that order is dictated by the project admins. And so if you have a different idea of how those disciplines should be sorted, just work with the project admins on your project to get that done. But with the sheets here, let me move on let's go to some architectural sheets. Every time you upload a new version of a sheet, the previous versions are saved as well. So you can slip new sheets into there, or if there's just, a handful that are changed in this new version, those would be slip sheeted into their respective locations. And then we can see the most recent version or version set that version was uploaded in. So no data really goes away in that sense. Let's say you've got your bid set and then they issue an addenda or an ASI or a bulletin of some sort. Maybe you've got 2,000 sheets and, the first 500 they swapped. You'll get a version 2 for those first 500, and then the rest will be version 1 still until they change those. So, all those versions are going to be tracked, and it's really just dependent on how those sheets change over time. Now, on top of those sheets, everybody can make markups, but only people with certain permissions can publish those markups. So you can take what's called private markups and kind of create your own notes that only you can see. And if you have the right permissions, you can publish that to where everybody else can see your markups. We also talked about the version set. We've got the discipline there. We'll talk about why this is a filter or why it's blue in just a second for your filters. And then you have this thing called tags, where if you find that, you know, there's just a few sheets that you find yourself always going to, or, you know, they're kind of part of a topic or something that you needed to track, we can create tags to where it's just a quick filter, just easily get to the sheets that you need. Now, speaking of filters, you should see this bar in the top right, search and filter. If you click that, first you can search for things. So I see slab on here. So I'm going to type the word slab. And here are all the sheets with slab in the title. Now, if I check this content box, what that does is it searches for all sheets that has that either in the title or somewhere on that sheet. And so, of course, a bunch of structural sheets pop up. If I was to click on this button there, it'll show me where this word slab is on, you know, that specific sheet. And so you can search for either titles or words on sheets, you know, if there's a specific phrase that you're looking for. In addition to that, you can also filter by version set. So we've got CB number 1, I believe, is the latest. If you wanted to go back and look and see what was updated in SD progress set 4, you could do that. Similarly, you can filter by discipline. So let's say, okay, we've got the slab thing, just show me the structural drawings related to that, or that have that word. And so now we've got 20 drawings that have the word slab somewhere on there. And then finally, we can use tags. And, you know, you don't have to use these in conjunction with each other. I'm just kind of building on it. You can use them independent of each other. You know, search, version, discipline, or tags. You don't have to use all of them. You can use them one by one if you want. But let's go ahead and do area C, because I see that listed over there, and I'll hit search. So here are all the drawings that have slab in them. They're structural discipline sheets, and they have area C that they're tagged by. I can take that a little bit further, and I can say, okay, framing. So here are the sheets that have both area C and framing. Now, if I uncheck this, here are all the sheets that have either area C or framing, and then meet these other things. So just kind of following up on the tag thing here real quick. If I do a search with just the tags, area C and framing, here are all the sheets across the project that have either area C or framing in their tags. And if I check this, it makes it to where they have both. So if I do search again, oops, I clicked on that thing again. Here are the 3 sheets that are tagged with both area C and framing. Now those tags, you can leverage those tags to kind of create a quick filter, like I said. So I see occupancy over there. And then, yeah, I wish that thing would go away. Sorry, there is a truck outside. This is making all kinds of noise. What I can do, instead of having to search for this every single time, is I can go ahead and hit edit. And I can make a new tag. And I'll create a new option. And I'll save that to those sheets, so you can see it kind of listed up here. And then now, if I go to my search and filter, go to my tags, I should see occupancy on here. And then here's all the sheets that match that new tag that we just created. All right, cool. All right, see if we could reduce that background noise a bit. So that said, any questions so far before I actually jump into sheets and look at, you know, some of the markup capabilities and things like that?
So the only thing I would add, Aaron, is you go through all that effort to narrow your sheets down by a search. You can save that. I'm thinking about estimating, right? They found words and they narrowed it down to a few sheets that they cared about, and they might want to show somebody else.
Yeah.
They should save that search. So maybe you could quick show that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I'll just kind of redo what we were looking at earlier. Sorry for this thing that pops up. It does kind of walk you through some tutorials on new projects and stuff like that. It's just very persistent. So it doesn't go away until you finish those tasks. So that's it. I'll do search. And then what I can do is I can save this search, and then I'll do structural slab, keep all these searches. I can also change the search criteria if I wanted to at that point. Otherwise, I hit save. Now I can go to my saved searches, and I can do filter by rebar and Josh. So here's a previous saved search that Brian did. I can click that, or I guess I did that. I just didn't share it. So here's this same thing that matches that criteria. And then I can take this and I can share it with others in the project, or certain people or roles in the project. So now other people can benefit from my little saved search there. So yeah, you don't have to find the same stack of sheets every single time. You could just create a tag or create a saved search that has a bunch of different criteria that you're looking for, and then share that with other people. So pros and cons with those, or kind of use cases for each of those. Tags, you actually have to assign sheets to those tags. Whereas saved searches, maybe new sheets came in or something like that they weren't tagged. It'll include those new sheets if they match your criteria too. So kind of, give and take there, what the different utility would be. All right, so let's jump into a drawing. I know this one has a bunch of markups, so I want to show that first. Yeah, I'm going to give Autodesk some feedback on that little guy there. All right, so that said, this is how the drawings look when you load it into your web browser. A lot of the different tools and things that we are going to explore here are also available on the mobile device. Now, first of all, we've got this little mini map. So as I zoom in, you can see it kind of showing where I am in the drawing. I can take it and I can drag it around the drawing as well. If it's just too much, I can hide the mini map, or I can bring it back. I always forget where it comes back, but you can enable it or disable it, at your leisure if it's just kind of too much. Now, off to the right, we have all of our different markup tools. And so you can do, a highlighter or a pen. You can do markups with different shapes. You can add text markups. You could do a clouded area. You could do a little call out like we've got here. Or you could do a polygon or a polyline for something that you want to mark up. And with those, you could do all kinds of different colors. So you could do a border color, kind of set that up. You can also do fill colors as it applies. And then that helps you create kind of a graphic language for your markups too, to where you can, kind of have this color means this, or it was created by this person or something like that. Now these other little things with the, this little locator symbol with 01 or kind of some small text in here or a check mark, those are called issues. And issues are just points of communication that people have identified and pinned them onto the drawing. And oftentimes, if you've got locations, the project admins have set up locations in the project, those could be mapped on the drawings. So when you drop these pins in here, it'll automatically assign it to that location. So this becomes your real-time digital punch list. So you don't have to actually keep a log of punch list items that are assigned to you. They'll actually automatically be tracked by location, just by dropping them on the sheets here. Now, with these markups, in addition to having, color options and stuff like that, you also have the capability of adding references into those. And so, with these references, if I can get this guy to go away, let's try that again. There we go. With these references, So I've got these 2 RFIs marked up on the drawing. Any of these references that you do on top of sheets, and here's the list of references you could do with markups, and there's a bunch of other references and other places that we'll explore. It works bidirectionally. So what that means is if I click on this RFI, it's a hyperlink. It'll load up that RFI and show me everything about it. But then it also shows me markups that has been marked up twice on that drawing that we were looking at. So if you've ever had to do an RFI log by hand for what you mark up on the sheets, this will save you that step. Just by marking it up on the drawing, it already knows that it's been marked up on that drawing 2 times. So just kind of showing that real quick. I'm going to duplicate this markup. Maybe I'll move it over here because this area has the same thing to do with it. If I refresh this RFI, I can now see that it's been marked up on a sheet 3 times. In addition, this RFI has been referenced inside of an issue. Maybe the issue prompted the RFI. It's also been discussed in a few different meetings too. So it's this bi-directional reference that you create just by linking those together. So let's look at how we sort of work with some of these markups. I'm going to do, maybe I'll do a circle. I haven't done a circle for a while. First of all, I'll set my color. Maybe we want green with, yellow inside. I guess I did that for the camera, so I'm not being super unique. I can kind of highlight over that area, and that's just a markup. It doesn't really do anything by itself. It's just kind of saying, hey, here's some stuff that I'm drawing onto the drawing. Now, right now, this is a private markup. So anybody else that logs into the project, they won't be able to see it until I click publish over here. And not everybody has the permissions to be able to publish markups on sheets or files. But for those that do, there is that option right there to publish it. Now, if I click on edit, it brings up this little box here, and it'll show, my color options here. Maybe I want that yellow to be fully opaque or less opaque, so I can kind of set all that sort of stuff up, or I can, change the colors altogether. But then I can go to my references and I can say, okay, I want to add a reference. It can be to another sheet. It could be to a different file. So maybe there's some product information I want to link onto the sheet so I don't have to look it up next time. We've already looked at those RFIs. Maybe there's a form around quality or safety. Maybe this is an unsafe area and we want to attach our safety incident form to that, as well as a safety issue that we'll talk about in just a bit. Maybe there's a submittal that has something to do with this circle. Or maybe there's a piece of equipment that we want to track on the drawings here as well. I'll just do RFIs just to show you how easy it is to create an RFI from here. We'll explore RFIs in a bit more detail in a little while. But that said, I'll click RFI. Now you have a few different options here. You can select an RFI that's already in flight. So maybe there already is an RFI that has something to do with it. You're just marking it up on the drawings. It's just as easy as checking the boxes next to those RFIs that have something to do with your markup. You can optionally do create new, and we will do something like that, whatever the title is of your RFI. We have the RFIs worked, the workflow set up to where it'll automatically traffic it to somebody else. So in other words, you go into the drawing, create an RFI, submit, and you don't really have to worry about who it goes to next. It's already built in. But I'll do an update. Okay, when do I need this respond by? Next week, Wednesday, we need a response. What is the question? So you put in your question. And then how do you want, or kind of what the suggested answer is. And we'll talk about RFIs, like I said, but real quick on suggested answer. Some people laugh at me when I say that, but I like to always encourage the use of suggested answers. You're not telling the architect or engineer of record or the owner what to say. You're just kind of guiding them into understanding what you need. So if you ask a question, sometimes, especially electronically, things get lost in translation. This is just a way of saying, okay, I see what Wayne's asking here. Now I know the information that I need to provide so they can formulate their response based off of you kind of guiding the witness there. So I'll do that. Maybe the location is on the first floor, vestibule area, and then, kind of fill that out. So I'll create that RFI there. And so now I can see that new RFI. And I'm going to go ahead and add those others back in just to kind of show you how that works a bit. So I think it was these. I don't actually remember, or maybe it was, yeah, I don't know. I don't remember, but I'll go ahead and add that. And so I can see a list of 3 RFIs that have something to do with this little circle here. And if I click on this RFI again, just to show you there's nothing up my sleeve, I can see I've got this markup here on the drawing that we just created. Okay, and I've got 2 other that somebody else has created that I just can't see yet on those sheets. So that's the markup capabilities. Now there's one other markup that we can tie into other project data, and specific around these issues. What I'm about to do, you can also do in 3D models on your web browser too. So it's got a lot of utility. So next down from these markups, we have this issues. If I select that, now this is a training project, so there's a lot of excess junk in here. But Brian has already worked through building out a list of preset topics or categories for those issues. So I'll just do this. Actually, I see O1 there. I'll do O2 building. And I'll drop it over here. Now notice some of these rooms got blue. Those are rooms that are already tagged. So if I was to click it in here, it'll automatically get assigned to the vestibule. Okay, so that's why those turn blue. But I'll go ahead and click it there. I didn't mean to put it right there. I'm going to drag it over here. So here's all the information about it. Now what it's saying is that there are required fields. I need to satisfy all of those that have this star here. So I'm going to say, first floor. And then now that I've satisfied those requirements, it said, okay, you're done with that. Do you want to keep it as draft or set it as open? This is a little bit of a permissions thing, but I'll go ahead and set it to open. And notice the color of that changed based off of the status. And the reason it has the little arrows on there is because I've got it selected. That means it's in move state. So I can move it after I select it. If I click away, it'll change to O2 to match the template that Brian set up. If I select it again, now I can drag it again. So that's kind of what's going on there. Now, that said, I've got some other fields that I could fill out in here. One of them being assigned to. And so I can say, okay, well, this one should be Brian, or his role or something like that. Just by clicking that, it's already assigned to Brian. He's already received a notification. So if you're doing this on your browser or on the, you're walking around on the job site doing it on mobile, you just kind of record your observations, assign it to the role or, somebody else that needs to traffic these things. That's all you really need to do with it until it comes across your desk again. It's already out. So, if you're on mobile, you just sync to Wi-Fi or what have you. Those notifications go out. You don't have to do anything extra with it. Just by putting assigned to on here, it's already off to the races. Now, what I like to do is encourage root causes, and we'll talk about all these different things in just a bit. In addition to markups having references, you can also have issues have references. So part of this being that single project ecosystem is the interconnected relationship between parts and pieces on the project. And so maybe this had something to do with the schedule activity. Like, hey, I can't do, these 2 steps until we get this issue resolved. And that's all I need to do is just kind of check those things. Same as we saw before with that RFI. If I go to the schedule, click on these guys here, it'll load up the schedule to that point, and it'll say that there's an open issue related to that event. So pretty cool stuff with that. Yeah. Sorry, was there a question? All right. You ready for couple number? I'm sorry, what was the question?
I think it was background noise.
Oh, okay, cool. I was like, man, I really can't hear or understand. I feel bad. Okay, cool. So lots of things that we can do with issues. We'll talk about that in just a bit. So, it's all in real time. So Brian could have already received that notification, changed the status, things like that. Down below that, we have this photos tool. Now, it's a little misleading because you can do photos as well as videos, or if you have one of those fancy 360 cameras, You could do those as well. I like to use it as like a marker for progress photos. So you can add a photo today, come back 2 weeks, take another photo, add it into that, so you can track progress over time. But yeah, it'll let you do photos, videos, and 360 photos as part of that. Now we also have this little measurements tool. Now this one here actually creates a markup. And so the sheet's already been calibrated. If it's not, these guys will be gray and only this one will be lit up. So to do that, it's pretty easy. You just click on calibrate. You can set a scale over here. If you go to the title block and it says whatever, you could set it like that, or you could do set scale by clicking 2 points in the drawing. So let's zoom into, maybe these guys. Well, I guess not. Anyway, you could sell it because it's already calibrated. It doesn't want me to change it, but anyway, for the measurements that you see here, these actually appear as markups. And so what I can do is I can go, maybe I'm kind of curious where this jam is right here. I can go from my grid line to that door, and it'll show me that. And that's definitely not 1 foot. So we definitely need to calibrate that thing. So yeah, the calibration on this one is all kinds of messed up. Yeah, so that's one area that we'd want to check. Your project admin should have done it. Oh, here we go. There we go. Okay, so now my markup should be good, but this one here, yeah, I'm not actually sure why that one's all wonky. I'll look at the calibration later, Brian, but thankfully this is a training project. Somewhere it got messed up. But anyway, so you could do line measurement, freeform measurement, or an area, and that'll create a markup of those measurements. So if there's something that you need to do to relay that information, you can. Down here, you have a general measurement. So whatever you do here won't appear as a markup. This is just for your study purposes. Yeah, I really want to fix that now, but I'll fix it later. Somebody made it all wonky. We'll look at that. But anyway, you've got ways of measuring as well as having those measurements as markups. Now, over time, you might have a bunch of markups on here, maybe even a bunch of issues. So off to the left, we can filter this stuff. And so here's all the markups on this drawing. I can hide them all if it's just too much. I can also say whether or not those have links. So if you look in the top right of all these things, this little blue icon pops up. And if we zoom in, we can see these have got RFI markup or RFI references. This one up here had a submittal reference and a form. I can turn that information off if it's just too cluttered. Additionally, I can filter and say, well, just show me those that are mine that I haven't published. So that's this one here. So I can select that and publish it so people can benefit from it. I can filter by who created it, the color, all kinds of different things as well. We can also go to my issues. So here are all the issues on this sheet. The overall project, there's observations and issues and things way more than this, but these are just those on the sheet. I can click it and it'll zoom into that. And I can look at the information here and maybe update it. If I change the status here to in review, you can see it turns purple, stuff like that. We could also filter this and say, well, just show me those that are assigned to me, or they're in this specific area or whatever. So you can filter those issues that you see here. We can also see the locations that are mapped here. So that's all those funny blue areas. We can map a new location if we wanted to. Now, not everybody can do this, only people with edit access. Oops, did not mean to click there already. Let's say this vestibule here. I want to go ahead and do that. So I'll just go ahead and draw a little area here. And oops, I did security over here. My bad. Not paying attention to what I'm doing here. But anyway, now if somebody drops an issue pin into there, it's going to automatically tag it to that location. So that's kind of what that tool's for. And then finally, we come to assets. Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Go ahead. I'll let you finish assets.
All right. So with assets, what you can do is you can mark up where these objects are on the sheet. So we've got this little plumbing fixture here. It looks like we've got a few of them, a few little lavs. And then each of these can have their own status, their own barcode, handover information, as well as their own references. So you can have a punch list item directly related to that sink. All right, Brian, sorry about that.
Yeah, so stay right here. Let's work backwards. So assets. Some of the people on the phone today, this is a really big deal. So imagine P&ID. You've got a bunch of equipment, and we can now connect the drawing to the asset list and color it up by status. That can be changed via the iPad. That also can be done through the model. So we now have the ability to colorize and notate through drawing and model an asset. That asset can be a room, it can be a sink, it can be a piece of equipment, it can be a piece of steel, it could be a concrete pour. So really huge thing here. Virtual Construction's working pretty hard right now to figure out maybe the top half a dozen things that make sense at Myron to consistently track on projects. So more to come on that. Working back to locations. Aaron showed marking up a location here. We don't expect the end user to do this. Honestly, this is a little tedious. Virtual Construction on some projects will go ahead and do this for you. We don't expect anybody to go in here and pick each room and do this. As a side note, Autodesk is going to be coming out very shortly with an automation that takes rooms out of the model and automatically applies it so that we don't have to do it manually either. So today, not so much, you're not going to see a whole lot of blue boxes on your drawing. You're just going to have to fill in what that actual location is. And then the last thing is the calibration. So if we go back to calibrate this drawing, I see a new button, and I actually am really happy to see it. So Aaron, if you go back to markups where we got hung up on that calibration, and you hit calibrate, it looks to me like now right there, that's permission based. So that way an admin can calibrate the drawing and nobody else can change it.
Correct.
So
yeah,
because Aaron is an admin, here's a little hint. I always look for the blue buttons. The blue buttons,
yeah.
it's an administrative permission.
That's right.
So you have to remove it, I believe, before you can change it.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I gotta kill the one. It looks like actually I did that in August. I messed it up. So yeah, I gotta kill whatever I did before. And then put it back or create a better one. Yep, you're right. You're absolutely right. And we'll do that, kind of offline so we don't put everybody to sleep. One other area that I didn't get to, unless there's something else you wanted to work back to, Brian, sorry.
Nope.
Another thing is, we get
published
revisions.
and unpublished.
Oh yeah, published and unpublished. Yep. So you can take this markup right now. It's published. If I wanted to retract it back, I can unpublish it so only I can see that. Now this one is related to an RFI, so it'll still show that there's an unpublished markup in sheet A101 related to RFI number 7. Just no one can see it until I put that back. But if, however, I wanted to put some text in here, and then noticed it took the same graphics that I did before. Oops. Let's go ahead and kill that because I'm clicking like crazy over here. So, you don't have to set those graphics every single time. It'll kind of try to remember that. And then maybe what I'll do is not fill this in. So you have that. Now this one I don't have to publish. If I do click publish, anybody who logs in the sheets can see it. If I hit unpublish, only I can see that. So that's kind of how that works. Now over time, things change. The drawings change, maybe through a design change or something that happened with on-site conditions or what have you. Being able to very quickly go in and understand those changes is really powerful too. So this you can also do between or sorry, in 2D like we're about to do. You can also do it in 3D. I'm going to go back to a different version of this sheet. This one's changed a lot. Anyway, I thought it was A101, Brian, but maybe
It is. Just go back one version.
Oh, there we go. Could be this one, but this is a totally different sheet. And maybe that's part of it too, is, you know, you might get a different thing and they've changed the entire sheet. You'll be able to see that too, but maybe DD. I'll try this one, see where we land. Yeah, that kind of worked out. So notice they don't line up. I can click on this align tool and I can move them to line up a little bit better. I can also use my arrow keys and sort of nudge them around. So I'll zoom in a bit and I'll just use my arrow keys to get those curtain walls to line up. You know, something like that. Shoot, maybe that's part of the change.
It's a terrible example.
It is. I'm sorry, I picked the wrong one here.
Yep.
So we'll get out of line. Is there a better sheet that has this? I thought this was the one.
So A101, just take the one version back, or S101's a good one.
S101, okay, we'll do that. Good.
And this is because it's a training project and loading up
yeah.
stuff and making a mess of it, but I guess we're gonna have to get a new set of drawings up here that are a little more realistic.
Correct, yeah. So this one, everything's black. There's no red and blue. That means there's no changes to this drawing. What I can do is grab a different version of the same drawing, compare that. And then this one here. So yeah, again, it's out of alignment, but that's okay. I can put it back, get it pretty close. The idea here with the red and blue is to understand sort of the order of magnitude. So if I zoom right here, I can see there's a pretty serious shift with vertical circulation here. So what I'll do is I'll change from overlay to side by side. Now on the right is the current version. On the, oh no, I think it's the other way around. That's another thing with this training project. The version sets are named all kinds of different things. But
so Aaron,
yes, sir.
So A101, CV1 versus 90% CD. That's a really good example.
Okay, A101. Sorry, folks. CB1 versus what?
90% right there. Just like it is.
Maybe the preview is just...
Don't even look at that preview. Hit compare.
Yeah.
I don't know what that preview is doing.
Yeah, that's pretty weird. Okay, yeah. So see how some things are red, some are blue, the rest is black and white. So that's just kind of indicating where the changes are. The newest version is red. The previous version is blue. And so what I can do is find an area of magnitude. Looks like here we just specified some kitchen equipment. There was a little wall shift there. And so what I can do is change this from overlay to side by side and kind of flip back and forth. So yeah, it looks like those walls totally changed location. So what I'd want to do is now come out of here and overlay maybe the plumbing drawings. So I can hit change and go to my P101s if there is one, overlay that, and then kind of see how that matches up. So
sorry, there's no plumbing in this set.
No plumbing. Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's just kind of an example where you could do the compare between versions, but then you can also overlay two totally different sheets as long as they have the same orientation. So this one is a floor plan. You can do a ceiling plan, but just not an elevation or section. And it's the same scale. You can overlay those things like you're on a light table and kind of see how things line up there. So in that structural example with the vertical circulation changing, I can check that the other floors agree with the shift of that elevator, you know, for example, because we like elevators to have the same openings, you know, throughout. They usually work a little better that way. So you can check that by overlaying those different drawings. All right, so that's just sheets. I mean, out of the box, we haven't really touched much yet. We haven't even scratched the surface. There's a lot of things just with those sheets that we can do. But let's go ahead and look at files and see what more we can do.
Aaron,
Yes, sir.
Sorry.
No, you're
Let's
fine.
go back to sheets.
Okay.
So here is a really, I think, unique workflow for our audience. So S101, let's just go find an S101. Let's pretend like there's concrete on that drawing. There's flat work. So one possibility is to come in here and create markups for concrete pours. You don't have to publish them. They can be your own markups. And then we hit the three dots in the upper right-hand corner and we can export it. And we get some options, right, to export only our unpublished markups. So here's an example of, I just want to communicate the order of pours to somebody at Myron, but I don't want to mess up the whole sheet. That's okay. Just don't publish it and export it out.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. So again, just kind of making that data available, and then you can externalize it or leverage it in different ways, for sure. That's a great point, Brian. All right, cool. Anything else before we move to files? Let's go ahead and dig into a bit more here. So I'm going to go out to sheets and go to my files. Now we mentioned that, the spec files go here too, but there's a lot of other file types, Revit files, Navisworks files, those sorts of things. You don't have to be a pro with Revit. You don't even have to have Revit installed or ever gone to a Revit class to be able to view your Revit files in here, as well as, Excel files and, SketchUp files and whatever other things the team feels like they need to save here. So taking the Revit file as an example, I'll open up this architectural RVT. Again, I don't have to have Revit installed. I don't have to know the first or last thing about how to use Revit, but I can load this thing up and I can start to spin it around. So I'll try to go a little slow here. Let me know if I'm going too fast or too slow. What this is the one of the 3D views that the author or team that's creating this Revit file felt that should be published to the system here. That's kind of where it defaults at. For my controls, I'm defaulting in orbit mode. So that means if I hold my left mouse button down, when I, kind of squeeze the mouse and move around, it's going to orbit that thing based off of the center of the whole model. Now I can select something and that now becomes the center of my orbit. So there's that trick. You also have this pan mode. So now if I move my mouse, it's just going to kind of move that around. You have fit to view, and that really just helps if you're really zoomed in somewhere. You can click that and it'll zoom back out and show you everything. Next to that, we have our zoom window and dynamic zoom. So I'll show you zoom window first. So you can kind of pick an area and I'll zoom right into that. You also have your dynamic zoom, if I could get to it, where it'll take you back and forth when you drag your mouse, when you hold down the left mouse button and drag your mouse. Next to that, we have this first person thing. So this is a good thing to, good trick to show off to your friends as you go into first person mode. First of all, what it'll do is it'll give you a little tutorial on what the different controls are, and then a little mini map of a level. So you could say, well, okay, let's do this from the mezzanine level. Say, okay, got it. So here I am at the lower mezzanine level. It's a little hard to see because I'm outside the building, but it's going to be about, center stage here. If I use those arrow keys or the W, A, S, or D keys to move around, I can actually walk around inside it. And you can see my little icon appearing over here. I can take that and I can drag it into the building. So let's say I wanted to kind of look around the seating area up here. So now I can look all through it and I can say, okay, well, hey, we're missing a wall or a support structure there. I can also look down off the railing and kind of move around that way. At any point, I can get out of that first person mode by hitting escape. So now I'm just in the regular view thing. So I have to be real careful if I, orbit or something like that. It could take me a different part of the building, but otherwise I can select this floor. I can right click on it and let's say, okay, well, I want to see what utilities we have behind that. So I can hide selected. And it looks like there's nothing there, just us in the floor. And then with this, we can start to add additional information. So I'm going to right click again. I'll say show all. And I'm going to put an issue right here because we're missing some serious information there. So I can say, issue. I'll go to, let's see, we'll just go to one of these design issues. We'll do design input needed. That works. And I'll just kind of click it right there. This opens up that issues box. Got a little thumbnail. I'll talk about that in just a bit. I can assign this to DCA. So now everybody with DCA in their role just got a notification for that. Now, a cool thing with the pins on the models is it has this little thumbnail that pops up. And I can add markups now to that thumbnail. And so now it's got this little image. I can grab a cloud, maybe change the color. So that's the information that I need. Something like that. And so maybe this will prompt an RFI future state. In fact, right now, while I'm at it, I can go ahead and create an RFI just like we did before. Okay, so I'll go ahead and leave that, save my thumbnail. If I scroll up to the top, we can see we've got a little update there. So that's kind of, working through the model itself. I'm going to click on this little house up here so we can zoom back out. Now, you don't have to use these buttons. My mouse has 3 buttons. Well, actually, it has more than that. Somebody convinced me to buy a $300 mouse. I'm still trying to figure out if it was worth it. But that said, most normal mice these days, I think, have 3, except Apple has 1 usually. But if you have a 3-button mouse, meaning left and right, and then the little wheel in the middle, you can use those buttons instead of using those things. So for example, I'm in orbit mode. If I roll the wheel forward, I zoom in. If I roll it back, I move out. If I press the wheel down, like I'm squeezing that wheel, then it shifts me to pan mode. And I can also right click and that'll enter pan mode and various other things as well. If I hold down shift and right click, that's going to be this whole dynamic zoom thing. So you got a lot of other options if you have more buttons on your mice, or you can use the little tools over here. Now, you can also create a section of this just for your study purposes. So I can do section analysis, and then it has these different planes that you can do it by, or you can do an entire box and kind of just shrink down the view in this little area. I'm going to go ahead and do an X plane over here, not to be confused with Star Wars X-Wings if you're a Star Wars fan. And I can take that plane and I can move kind of where it crosses with the building. So maybe I wanted to look at a section of where we just were looking there. So yeah, there's nothing connecting those two floors there. It's just a magic floating floor. In fact, if I want to get extra critical, that this isn't going to work either. But that said, I can look at this information, and just like before, I can add an issue here. Got a little thumbnail. I'll go ahead and edit that. And then same thing, create a little clouded area on that. And maybe this one, we don't want it to be filled in at all. And then save my thumbnail, move on with my day. So I'm just kind of going through it. Now, if I hit escape here and kind of reset it all, my view goes back, but I can see all those little funny dots on there. Those are all those, issues that people have identified. If I click on any of them, it'll zoom me to where the person was, in this case, it's us, when we first created that, and then we can see the markups that they created. Now, those markups you can do after the fact as well. So if I select this one that was created way before the markup tool, looks like this is a building code related thing. I can zoom in my camera, get it to where I want, and I can take a thumbnail now. And then same thing, I can add my markups to that. So you can add your markups later on. Now, the really, really cool thing with this, at least I think it's helpful, it saves a bit of time, is if I take that issue and I assign it to, let's say, Blake, and he's got Revit open right now, he'll receive a notification. He'll see this whole thing pop up inside of Revit, and he'll see my markups and everything. And he'll be able to look at it and say, okay, I see what I need to do. I'll get to work, within Revit. I don't have to go into Revit or walk over to his desk and say, hey, fix this in the model. I just made a little dot, got a little thumbnail here. I can mark up that thumbnail, assign it to him. He sees it in Revit. He goes to work. So it's just that dynamic. Now, additionally, because this is Revit, there is a relationship between the sheets in the Revit file as well as 3D. So if we go to the top left over here, there's a button that says Sheets and Views. If I click that, I can see all the 3D views that were published, as well as the 2D views, usually sheets, that were also published. Now I can take those sheets. Notice when I kind of hover over them, that little plane kind of flashes on there. I can turn on those drawings, and it'll first crop my view and overlay that floor plan onto this. It doesn't just work with floor plans, it also works with elevations, as long as they have a plane. Let's do a wall section. So I click on my wall section over here. And if we zoom in, we can actually see the detail of that wall section overlaid on top of our drawings there. Now, if there's one that just isn't mapped onto here, maybe it's a detail or something else, you can do a line 2D drawing and slap that 2D drawing onto virtually any surface in the 3D view. And I know that's getting a little bit fancy, so we'll just kind of park that there. But now the relationship thing between 3D and 2D exists. So for example, I can click on this little wall here because I'm not sure what the makeup of it is or what have you. Now with it selected, it's saying there's two 3D views that this element is shown in. But if I go to 2D, it shows me that on 11 2D views, that also has this wall. So I could say, okay, it's on the second floor plan. I'll go ahead and click on that sheet. And that wall would already be selected and zoomed in if it was in fact present. Looks like it's kind of masked behind that guy there. But anyway, you can set up that association. So maybe we'll do this a little bit better. I'll grab a wall that's going to be obvious. So see how it turns blue. Now if I go to my 3D and we look at that architectural 3D, then it should be selected over there. Maybe it's my web browser's messed up, but anyway, you can click it. It'll still be highlighted when you go there. I believe it was that one. So you can find out what that relationship is, directly. All right. So, and then because these are sheets, all those things that we did in the other sheets. Now, these aren't the same sheets we were looking at before. These are sheets within the Revit model. But all those different markups and stuff like that we can do here as well. Before I forget too, there's also a compare tool for 3D. So we can say, okay, what's changed between version 1 and version 2 of this particular model. If we do that, it actually gives us a scorecard of what's been added, removed, and modified. So we can very quickly see what that is. We can export the list of changes and bring that to a discussion, maybe for a change order or an OAC meeting or something like that, kind of understanding where those changes are. We'll go ahead and kind of let it do that. Yeah, I think it is my web browser. So Firefox is the way to go. Don't be like me. Go Firefox. But that said, there's some other little tools in there to be able to filter it by level and so on. But yeah, just kind of keep in mind that there's a bunch of file types that you can view within the system. In addition to Revit files, you've got your PDFs. Most of these things you can do markups on. So you can mark up this Division 3 concrete spec. Navisworks files you can do as well. If you have Office files like Word, Excel, that sort of a thing, you can actually edit those within the tool here. So you don't have to download it all. You can just load it up, make your edits, and then exit, and then everything that you edit will be saved there. And I'm not sure where any are, so let's go ahead and find one.
Auto spec. Show them
what
how
was
to
that?
search. No, it's perfect. Show everybody how to search for an Excel spreadsheet.
Do SLXS, XLSX file, sorry. So here's all the Excel files in the entire project because it's looking in subfolders as well as the content. I can do all folders, so it's going to be the same thing because I was at the root level. But I'll go ahead and open up this Excel file. And it puts you into view mode initially. But I can switch from view to edit mode if I have Office 365 subscription, which I believe you all do. And now if I make any changes here, they automatically get saved. I wasn't paying attention to what version we were on before. But yeah, if I come into any of these, maybe, let's see, maybe this one here we felt should be 450. I can do that. My progress will automatically be saved. I can go back to the folders there. And then what happens is a new version of that file appears. So I'll go back to this. So now we've got a version 4. So apparently it was version 3 before. So as you make changes to that, it automatically saves and gives you a new version. And I think there's a little timeout there. Like if you type, it's not doing, version every time you type. It's I think there's a little timeout like every 5 minutes or something like that. Or if you exit, it'll automatically save a new version, things like that. But yeah, certainly use this search tool. I have no idea where these were. Project files, BIM, one admin, BIM execution. Would have taken me all day to find that. But using the search and filter tool over here, you can do that. And then again, the same thing. You can save that search so you don't have to type that again or click those boxes again. A pretty great little utility. All right. That was a long section. The rest are, faster by comparison. But any questions on home, sheets, files, or Brian, if there's anything that I missed there?
So let's take a pulse here. That was a lot of information, right? We got pretty deep there with the model. I think two key things, right? So first of all, we can open up just about any file type in the browser. That's the first thing that's pretty neat. I think the second thing, if you didn't catch it, was Office 365 works the same here as it does if you shared it in SharePoint. In other words, more than one person can be in it. It'll version and automatically save. It's got the auto save that's working. And that works with Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Visio, all your Office 365 tools, it'll work the same. So I'm thinking we're an hour and 20 minutes in. Is this a good time to take a 5?
Sure, good with me. Up to the team though. I can Iron Man or we could take a break. It's all up to you. You all tell me what you prefer.
Yeah, take 5. Take 5.
All right, let's take 5. We'll come back at 2:25.
Perfect. Sounds good.
All right, thank you. Yeah, Aaron, maybe it's time I probably start rebuilding our training project. Looks like it's starting to get pretty mucked up, huh?
Yeah, it's inevitable. Ours, the one that we use internally, is the same way. Somebody's got pictures of their cats, their nephew. We've got a book list that's an asset category. It's like the training projects are great because it gives people that sandbox to do stuff in, but they can get crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw too, I updated the slide deck here. I didn't get to send that to you before our session today, but I've updated it based off of the new interface and some newer modified tools and stuff like that. So hopefully it looks good so far.
I absolutely did notice it. Looks great.
So,
Hey, Blake.
Hey.
hey, Blake, sorry, I was assigning stuff to you.
Oh, that's fine. No big deal. Do we have a way to figure out who assigned project admin rights?
I can,
Comes after.
so the old BIM 360 admin is the only one that I knew. Well, let's ask Aaron. Aaron?
Yeah.
What is the best way to find out who assigned admin rights to somebody on a project?
Oh, yes. So we're finally getting the activity log back. Which I'll have to remember where the heck they put it. So if you remember in BIM 360, there was the activity log. You can see what everybody did.
I've seen it before. I can't. I was poking around while you were doing your training. I didn't find it. Is it on Insight maybe?
It may be. Here, let me look here real quick. Let's see.
What's the answers?
Let's see.
Okay.
Latest updates. I'm trying to find the actual notice for where that was too. Oh, dang it. Oh, build. Actually, that'll take us there. Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe, let's see. I'll check our Slack because I know that somebody brought it up when we were looking at that.
Yes, I swear I found it before, but now that I need it, I can't.
So here's what Autodesk says. Oh, maybe it's in progress. Okay, so it's going to be released soon and it will be under project admin. But that said, for the time being,
BIM 360 should still have it.
yeah, BIM 360 might have it unless it's an ACC project. It'll kind of keep looping you back to.
It is an
here.
ACC project.
I still have been able to find it on BIM 360 admin.
I'll give that a shot.
Okay.
If you
All right.
can figure out how to get there.
Yep. Yeah, I can. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. You know how the loophole on how to get back to ACC projects from the BIM 360 links?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I'll just kind of keep you guys updated when that activity log does come back out.
All right. Thank you. You can keep assigning things to me during the training if you want.
Oh, awesome. Cool. I figured you don't mind. Yeah, Brian, that's another thing I think we can pull in Power BI is those admin activities.
I was actually looking for it and I did not see activity information coming out.
Shoot. Okay.
So.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, that kind of goes hand in hand with that folder permission data too, that I would love to get into Power BI. But anyway, we're getting a little off.
Side note, I mean, Zach was talking about how I think it's with submittals. I don't know if you've come across this or not, that the subcontractors, when they go into submittals, they can create their own number.
They can, yes.
And it's been kind of, I think,
it's annoying,
confusing, on the submittal aspect.
Okay. So let me check some settings. I don't think we have the ability to prevent that yet.
I just didn't know if you were aware of it. I just know that Zach was, when we have our Galloway meeting, that he like brought it up that the subs are like renumbering them or some odd thing like that. So
I know when it comes to self-performance submittals, a lot of times what ends up happening, especially on like, is our civil DCAs don't have the logs set up yet.
Gotcha.
And so you're already sending submittals in before they even have created the submittal log. And that's when basically you gotta kind of be smart about, okay, what should the number be?
Yeah.
Close, right? So that's the one reason that you want subcontractors to be able to create a submittal number, is if we don't have the log created yet.
Gotcha.
And you need to get that submittal, right? They have to give it a number. So the good news is they can change that number to the right number.
Okay.
So I hope if you're listening, Aaron, when we get to submittals, maybe we just kind of hit that a little bit, because you do have self-performed concrete on the phone, and they do a lot of submittals, and sometimes very early on.
These are only things I've somewhat
okay.
from our like,
Yes.
so.
No, I have. So thank you for letting me know that. All right, I think we have everybody back.
Okay, cool.
The room is full again. Get my mouse to cooperate. There we go. All right. So yeah, no $300 mice. I don't recommend it. Anyway, so that said, let's get back to the slides here, and we'll move on to the next section. I did notice we didn't share one thing, and that's around sharing. So with sheets or files specifically, you can share those with people in the project if the admins create a link that you can email. Forms and things like that will show other ways of sharing. I think we've kind of already explored that, where like an issue, if we assign it to somebody, then that's one way to hand it off. Same thing with RFIs and even submittals for that matter. You can also mention people in the comments, but specific to files, let's say we were looking and hey, there's that Excel file that we're looking at, and I wanted Brian to take a look at that. I could check the little box over here or click on these little 3 dots. It's either those 3 dots or these 3 dots, so pick your poison. It's the same thing. Click on share, and I'll say, okay, this one should be sent to Brian. Save that. Here is the Excel file we were, and then send that to Brian, and then now he'll get a notification on that specific file. So that's kind of another way that you can share. You can do the same thing with sheets too. You just hit share and send it to somebody else in the project. Now, some of the other options there, so that's project members that have access to this file or this folder that has the file. If this is enabled on your project, this creates a public link. So you can either email them directly from here. They don't have to be a person in the project, or you can take this link and copy that and put it into a Teams chat or your own email. You can also create bridges here. So if you remember that bridge tool, and we'll explore that in a bit more detail later, you can say, well, I want this Excel file to always be copied to this other project. You can turn that on. And I'm sorry, bridge doesn't work with files. It's got to be the whole folder. So there's that. So that said, that's sharing. I forgot to go over that. So one other thing we forgot was, unless I missed it, but files, permissions, sharing are based on user, role, or company. So similar to Procore, we manage all of our permissions by role. It's just the easiest to manage. So you could share that with all of Myron Construction that's on that project, or you could share it with project managers, and there's 4 of them. So.
Cool. Yeah, perfect. And that's all been set up in the template. For those of you attending level 2 training, we do go over that in a little bit of detail, but it's already in the template, so you shouldn't ever have to really modify it. Awesome. So now moving to issues, forms, and photos. So just kind of continuing down there, starting off with issues. Now, I'll tell you out of the gate, I'm not a big fan of the name issues because I think it really downplays the utility of it. So if you think of your observations, maybe you're walking the job site and there's things that kind of stand out to you, or punch list items. Maybe you're a safety manager, you want to point things out, or maybe when you're estimating and you need additional detail, or there's something that's a conflict. A lot of different things kind of fall into this issues bucket. Another way to look at it too is when you see something, or if anybody sees something on a project that needs to be, brought to somebody's attention or addressed or resolved, there's a few ways we can communicate that currently. You can pick up the phone, you can send a text, you can send an email, you can write it down and pass notes along. Those things are all external to the project. So now what you're doing is you're running the risk of, or at least if it was me, I might forget that I told somebody this, or I might forget to go from my notes and give it to somebody. Or it could be that somebody else is having these interactions outside of the project, so it doesn't become project information. So somebody, Bob might have told Shirley that there was this thing, and Shirley never told anybody else. And so it just kind of lives in external land, not inside the project, and never gets resolved. So any of those things that I mentioned within that kind of fall under this issues umbrella, to where it's like, if it's communication, create an issue. If it's just something, hey, I'm observing this, I noticed this, I'm going to just create an issue, and then I'll assign it to myself to resolve and figure out who needs to go to later. Or I know who this should go to. This needs to go to the safety manager so they can address it. Write it down. You can also, from the mobile app, just take a photo at any point and things like that, and then later create an issue. In fact, there's not like a set way on you have to do this and then this. So you can create a photo and then an issue. In fact, you can create a change order, then an RFI, then an issue if you wanted to. It doesn't really hold you away from that. But that said, if you use issues as a point of communication, now what we're doing is we're building in accountability. So who's it assigned to? We also have critical path. When do we need to have it started and completed by? Where is it kind of in the files that were located, as well as where in the project and its physical location? And then ultimately tracking root causes. So if you find that, hey, over time, we have a trend that, maybe there was an issue with the survey. You got 6 issues on site this week, 4 of them are with survey errors. Well, okay, that's an addressable problem. Now we're seeing kind of a trend here. I can get ahead of that because I have this data. So use issues as your primary point of communication once it's something that has to do with the project. If it's what Joe's having for lunch, probably not a big deal. But if it's something else that you're noticing that is project specific, go ahead and create an issue of that, and then we can figure out what to do with it after that. If it needs to be tied into a quality form or, plugged into an asset or something like that, we can do that later. But just get in that habit of communicating by way of issues. Now, for a lot of the site related things, issues now supports locations, like geographic locations, which I probably shouldn't have opened that just yet. So there's locations within the building, but then you can also do locations geographically by turning on GIS coordinates for those different issues. And you see that's the one that we created earlier. So everything kind of works together. The 2 that we created earlier, there was this one on that section, and then this one through that first person view. It all interacts dynamically. I don't have to file this thing over here, anything like that. I'm just going through the project files, or I'm walking the job site and I'm recording the things that I'm seeing. That's it. So this becomes, go ahead. Yeah.
Let's do an exercise just for our audience.
All right.
I'm a concrete superintendent, and there is a problem in the drawings that I need to communicate to my civil team, and I'm not getting responses. I'm not getting communication. So how would I go into a drawing, make a issue for that project manager, mention him so he gets bombarded with an email, and make a record of it in the issue list.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the beauty of it too is, you know, if it's top of mind, you just want to kind of write it down. You can do it inside of issues, or you can do it in sheets. And I'll show you kind of both of those. You could also start it in files. You know, there's a lot of different ways to start it. Just wherever you are, go ahead and write it down, and then we can tie it to other things. So I'll do it. I'll write it down while I'm inside the drawings here. So I'm going to go here. I'll pick something related to concrete. I'll just call it a layout error. So we had an issue with our formwork, or drywall, or whatever it might be that we're laying out here. Let's do you know, whatever it might be. I'll take that. Brian, I'm just going to pick on you here real quick. I'll assign it to Brian. So it's already in Brian's inbox just by me putting his name there.
Project manager, if there's 4 of them.
Yeah, do that. Oops. Especially if I can spell project correctly. To project manager or project quality manager, whoever it is. Now they've received that. Because I did pick Brian, he's always going to be CC'd. So you can do that with really anybody, is have them always getting copied on these interactions if they're in the project. The location of this, I was not paying attention where I was clicking, but you can set that. We'll just do that sort of a thing. Root cause, let's call it layout error. You can add references like we did before and say, hey, Brian.
Yeah, there we go. That causes another email.
Yep.
So every time you mention somebody, you're giving them instant notification. And there's a record that you did it. So it's kind of a... My phone was just going off already. So I'm already getting this as soon as he assigned me.
Yeah.
It's not even done.
15 other people get it too. So that's one way to do it. So you can do it directly from the sheets. You can do it in files in the same exact way. You could also say, well, I'm in issues. Maybe this is something you're doing on your mobile device. We'll create an issue kind of the same way. Now you can create templates of this too. So if you find yourself kind of filling out the same information multiple times, you're just changing location or adding a different photo or something, work with the project admins because they can create a template for you. But we'll go ahead and set this to that same category. So it's going to be a layout error. Let's do something else. Something like that. Let's see. So we were kind of a little too steep there. I can assign it again to someone else. Do the quality managers on this one. Now it hasn't sent anything just yet. On this way, it doesn't send notifications until you hit create, just so you know. Location details, placement. We'll talk about that in just a second. So you don't have to worry about it. I'm just showing you how to record it, get it down. And then we'll come back. So southeast, whatever it might be. So we'll just kind of do this for now. We'll just fill out the basics, hit create, creates a new issue. And then now, okay, hey, where is it on the drawings? I don't know. So you can come back for this placement one and say, well, it's on a sheet. We'll go to S101 again, just because that's the fun thing to do. Select that. And now the issue is already created. Okay, so it's already off in the works. Now I'm going back and I want to place this thing on my drawings. And so it's saying click to add the issue pin. I'll just click over here, hit done. And now I can see that it's placed on that sheet after the fact. Okay, so you don't have to necessarily remember the order of operations of, oh, do I have to log into this thing to record it and then do this thing? You know, you can create issues in a lot of different ways, including import, but that's kind of an advanced thing. So any questions, comments, concerns on issues? Take you another level of this too, and that's on the searches and filters. So first of all, we can filter, and I can say, okay, where are those in the first floor? So you know what this is? This is 71 items that make up the first floor punch list. Oh no, 71 rooms, I'm sorry. 27 items that are the first floor punch list. Easy. 2 of those we just created, or yeah, 2 of those. So I can instantly see those. I can pull it up on my iPad, check it, update the status, hand the iPad to an inspector or whatever to fix it. But this is my living punch list for the first floor. I can also take that and say, okay, well, those that are assigned to that role that we were looking at earlier. And now this is their to-do list. So here's 2 items I need you all to kind of fix, or at least bring to your attention. I can also go to my root causes and say, okay, how many layout errors do we have? We've got 2 layout errors so far this week. So that's kind of my root cause analysis that I can do. We could take that a little bit further as well. Let's pull these back up to project managers. I want to send them a report of these items. Like, guys, I really need you to pay attention to this. And so it'll actually create a report of it. You could do it in detail form. So it's going to have all the little details of these, or you could do a summary that just has a few things. Well, the summary option does have Excel. So if you wanted to, like if you work in Excel a lot and you just kind of want a list that looks pretty similar to what you've got here. In fact, you can go to this cog and turn other things on and off and change the location of it, or change kind of where they are. So for example, if I want location to be more towards the front, I can do that, you know. So you can configure this and only you see that. And then when you export to Excel, it looks like what you've got here. Well, we'll go ahead and do an issue detail, run that report. Now, getting a little ahead of ourselves, we don't usually cover this in level 1 to this extent, but once this report is generating, I'll just open another tab for us real quick. You can create a template from that. And then from that template, you can have it automatically go out on a certain day or time and to certain people. So you can remind those project managers in this case, or whoever it is, every Monday at 7 o'clock, here's your list of to-do items, or here's a list of things that I want to bring to your attention. And it's just going to nanny them all the way home until something doesn't match your filters. So this one, we just kind of filter to those items that were assigned to them. If they don't have anything assigned to them, it won't send them an email. So it's smart enough to not over email in that sense. So yeah, the reporting tools are pretty good tool too. You can also do a report from the reports tool. I just like doing it here because you can pre-filter it, pre-search, kind of see how it's going to look before you actually run the report. So that's why I like to do it this way. But yeah, lots of fun things that you could do with those issues. Again, just encouraging you all and your teams and things to leverage issues as that first point of communication, and then, you know, kind of figuring out where it needs to go after that. Any questions, comments on issues before we move to forms? Go ahead and do forms. So a lot of form templates have already been built for you all. And you can see a list of them here. So for example, daily reports, there's a couple that have been created for you all. There's also some quality reports, and just kind of doing a little cross section here. I wish I had another bar here, that always bugs me. Anyway, so we could see we've got water intrusion site inspection, general inspection report, you know, a lot of different templates that have been created. In fact, I think there's even more in the overall library for things for you all to kind of have and be able to record inspection information or closeout information, or just kind of general tests and things like that. And then those will ultimately drive issues. So if you're kind of going through a quality inspection and you notice that something's not quite conforming, you can create an issue from that. So for example, we'll do this welder, no, maybe not that one. So we'll do, what's a good one? Checklist for welding. So we'll do that. I want to make sure that I can, in fact, edit that. So I'm going to add myself as a contributor. Go ahead, Brian. I'm sorry.
While you're there, if you're trying to follow along, forms is interesting. You will not see the form if you haven't been assigned it. So it kind of reduces the noise. So that's one thing to remember about forms. If there's a form that you need, chances are we have it. You just need a project admin or a quality manager or a risk manager to assign it to you. So if you're a superintendent on a project, the daily report probably needs to be assigned to you. And that's one of the first things that your project admin is supposed to do. But out of the box, out of the template, you don't see any forms day one until they're assigned to you. So that's important to remember.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect. That's exactly right. It's that way by design. So you don't have a list of, 200, 300 forms. It's really dialed into your role has access to, maybe a handful of all those forms. So I added this one. I assigned it to me so I could see it here. But just to kind of show you how these forms work, and I'll show you a daily log as well. I think there's a couple of you that will probably use that more often. So this is just my checklist for welding. What location are we in? Maybe we're doing the mezzanine welding right now. Similar to the other things, you can add references to this, to the overall form. We'll do some of these references to specific items as well, but we'll go ahead and get out of the basic information, move on to general. Subcontract number, so whatever it might be, put that in there. Inspector is Mr. Brian. Subcontractor is, let's see if I can pick on somebody in the room. Go Jose. And then item or area ID, you can go ahead and put that. So these are required fields. I know that because of the star. So if I have any of these incomplete, including the other sections, and I try to hit submit, it won't let me until I fulfill that. Also notice with each item, you can add a comment, a photo, an issue, or a note. Okay, so comments or areas is kind of like a sidebar conversation related to it. It may be an area where you can also add mention. And so I can say, hey, I've got Brian on here for maybe this one as an inspector. Brian, please schedule, what have you. And then again, Brian's going to get another notification for that. You can also add photos to these issues or notes, even if it's conforming, even if there's not a problem per the requirements of the checklist, you just want to kind of create an action item, you can still do that for each of these. So let's move on to the next section. So I could say, okay, new item, accept. WPSs with supporting PQRs available and in compliance. Maybe I hit reject there. So now reject, it may or may not automatically prompt you. Some forms may be filled up to where it'll require you to create an issue or create a photo. So for this one, this was an acceptable. It was acceptable. So I can go to my photos. I can check a photo that I uploaded earlier. I can upload a new one. Of course, most of the time this is going to be done on mobile, so you can just take a photo with your mobile device, but I'll go ahead and add that. This one was rejected, so I'll do a new issue. I'll just grab that issue that we did before instead of creating a new one. Same process. So a new issue, and then you just kind of move on down the list. And then, as you find things, create issues from it or photos or add notes or comments as you go. And then ultimately there is a signature section. You can save that. And it's going to put, the name of the person who signed it, not kind of whoever was listed at the top, wherever that was. So it's not going to put Brian, it's going to put me because I'm the one who actually put my ink on there. This one does have a notes section. So yeah, anyway, that's kind of the basic process. There's giving you the ability to just kind of have a list of things to look for. If you notice something that's not quite right, well, let's go ahead and create an issue from that, so then somebody can take action. Now let me show you a daily report. So I'll do a new one, and I'll do the this one here, CHK Myron daily log, because there's a little bit more to it. Now, if you have one that's in draft already, or you haven't submitted just yet, it'll say, hey, you've already got one that's in progress. Do you want to continue where you left off, or do you want to create a new one? And if I want to continue where I left off, I can click this. It'll show me a list of those that I've already done, which I should go back and clean up at some point. I've got several back here. I should get rid of those. Sorry, Brian. But for training purposes, I'll create a new one. One thing on this too, once you hit submit, that's kind of a permanent thing. It flattens it all out, makes it a permanent situation. We'll talk about that in just a bit. But anyway, same thing, basic information. There's kind of top level stuff here. Because of the collaboration mode on this one, you can take it and reassign it to other people or roles. I'm not going to do that just yet because it's going to lock me out. It's going to put it in their bucket, and only they can reassign it back to me. So I'm not going to do that. But this is helpful if you have a form that you want somebody else to fill out. You can assign it to them, and now it's in their list. So that's just another way of committing that. So weather automatically gets loaded in. I don't have to do anything with that. Delays, you can record, the types of delays that would exist. If it's none, then put none. It's easy. If you do have a delay, maybe it's something to do with materials. Notice that it requires you to create an issue. And it's got a big red symbol there. If I try to hit submit, it's going to say, nope, can't do it. So I haven't completed this section. Also, I need to do an issue based off of that response. And so I can create an issue from that. So I'll go ahead and hit that to none. Also with this, I can take, just to kind of give you a full circle idea here, I can create an issue that's related to delays, and then I can tie that issue to the area in the schedule that it's related to, just by saying add reference, schedule, click my event. So again, you've got kind of a full circle here, you're able to tie things together that are related. Then we come to our inspections. Here's kind of the information regarding inspections that you took part in that day. Then we have our work log, and here it gets a little bit involved, but once you have a routine, it's easier. So we're going to go ahead and do add work. So who is the company? So we'll do Myron. What discipline is it related to? So we'll just say concrete. We don't have this option already, so in this case, I'll go ahead and add it. But please, just before you add, make sure that your spelling and everything is correct, so you don't have a bunch of mixed duplicates in there. If it has something to do with a specific role, you could do that. In terms of the people that you're adding their work for. Maybe had 2 people there all day, no overtime, and then what did they do? They were verifying layout. Okay, so I have that. Now, maybe I had similar people in a different spot. It's going to have me do this here because it's the first time that we've done a log with that discipline, so that's why it didn't retain that last one. Maybe I had one other person there for most of the day doing their own thing. Maybe they were maybe doing some RTS, whatever. They're laying out some other stuff. So I can record that now. So now I have 2 groups of people that were doing concrete, but they were just doing 2 different things. Now I've got 3 workers in total for a total of 22 hours that day. Okay, so that's my work log. Materials and deliveries is pretty similar. So you add your, the material, quantity, units, any comments to that. Equipment deliveries is also similar to where you have, your equipment, how many units, the hours that were used in comments. And then finally, we come to correspondence. So calls that were made, participants, subject matter, important discussions or decisions. You could do that. You can also add comments or notes to this as well. So you could do kind of a brief and then add more detail. Same thing with emails. Same thing with meetings. And finally, we come to our signatures, where the superintendent, this is a required daily thing to kind of fill that out. You can go ahead and mark that I've done that, and then I go ahead and hit submit. Now, once I hit submit, like I said, it's permanent unless the admins have got this turned on, or an admin can come and reopen it. But otherwise, just kind of assume it's permanent before you hit that submit button, because it does go out to the people that are gonna, review it. But if, let's say, hey, I needed to reopen this, but this option wasn't here, what I would do instead is copy, edit or make whatever edits, or leave it open and then delete my other draft or archive it. So you've got a bunch of different options here. Now, additionally, maybe this was yesterday's log and then I've got today's log, and it's pretty much the same, just different photos and maybe a couple different hours or something. I didn't want to fill out this whole thing all over again when it's the same thing. You can hit copy, and then all of my previous responses in all these sections, barring the signature, will copy over, including issue references and attached photos and stuff like that. It all gets copied over, and then I can just go and change it for what's different for today. So pretty cool little tool. First and foremost, I see it as a vehicle to encourage the creation of issues. Now, going back to the issues conversation earlier, if you have a project that's going on and on and on, it's not a bad thing necessarily to have multiple thousands of issues. It's okay. It means people are communicating, it's healthy, they're using the tool, they're communicating the project. What we do want to do, though, is work towards closing those issues. So it's one thing to record things, it's a whole other thing to resolve and get them off the list. So there's that. And Form's just a way of promoting the creation of issues and recording those different things that we're finding along the way. So then our project quality and just the overall efficiency of the project hopefully gets boosted from that. Any questions, comments, concerns on Forms before we jump to photos?
So I just want to put a little bit of food for thought for those on the line today. So all of those daily logs where you're entering hours, we can report on that. We can put that in a Power BI dashboard. Now, if you can imagine your hours connected to the schedule, connected to the budget, I have an accountant looking at me going, oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
That can be done. So if that's something you're interested in, let me know. I already have dashboards on daily logs. Obviously, it only works on an ACC project. But if it's something you want to test, let me know.
Yeah, that's a great point. Awesome. Yeah, that was really, really good wrapper there. All right, so photos. Let's do photos real quick, and I will jump on to the next section. So photos. Really, this list of photos is kind of a byproduct of your other activities. You can take and upload photos into this. If you kind of have a list, a batch of photos and want to upload it, you could absolutely do that. Most often, though, what we see is on the mobile app, there's a little photo button. You can just click that. It opens up your camera and you can take a photo or a video. That lands into here. But I think even more commonly is as you're going through these other workflows and you take a photo, maybe it's, a progress photo on the sheet or a photo related to an issue, or maybe you're filling out a daily log and you take a photo of the work that you were overseeing that day. All of those things kind of populate this photo list over here. And then the little back-end mechanics of this is you can add tags to the photos, just like we added tags to the sheets and things like that. So this is a tag that was created by a user, but then the system also found all of these things inside the photo and then automatically tagged the photo with these items. And if you disagree with any of these things, like I don't see framing, you can just go ahead and get rid of that smart tag. And then just like everything else, you can add references to your photo. So actually this photo right here, so it's been talked about in forms. It's part of an issue. It's been included in an RFI. It's been marked up on the sheet a couple of times. So all those references you can see here. So again, it's bidirectional. Whenever you create those references, it makes one thing talk to another thing. And when you're doing this on mobile too, you can also add markups to the photo itself. But yeah, so you have a list of photos here, and then you could start to filter them by certain things. So maybe I wanted to filter and show me all of those things that have to do with ceiling tile and ceiling framing, because I have to create a photo journal on that effort. So I can filter to that. Then I can export and create a photo log for anything that we filter by as well. So it's more of a byproduct. But yeah, any questions, comments before we jump to RFIs and submittals?
Sorry, Aaron, I thought I was sending that just to you, but time check. I know submittals and RFIs are pretty important.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, photos, it kind of works itself. You don't have to do much. There is a geolocation tool on there. So if you take photos on a job site outside, you could see where you were. It works indoors pretty well. It just, if you're surrounded by concrete, then it won't be absolutely accurate, but outside it works great. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump over to RFIs. Now this one, I'm going to change the order of how we've been doing this so far. I'm going to show you sort of what the settings are behind this so we can understand the workflow. So I'm going to go to settings, going to go to RFI types. We do talk about these settings a bit in level 2, so you don't have to necessarily follow me here. But I bring this up because I want to show you a couple of the workflow options. This is what's called default workflow, where somebody creates an RFI. If you're not the RFI manager, it starts its life as a draft RFI. And then the manager reviews it, and then they can decide whether to open it or not. If they do open it, they'll assign it a number. If they feel like it doesn't have enough information or what have you, they might kick it back to the creator and have them add more information to it or just void it at that point. Otherwise, they pass it on to review. The reviewer does their thing. They provide a response. The manager, they're kind of the gatekeeper, if you haven't noticed. They review that response. If it's, if they need more information or if it wasn't what they were asking, it'll kick it back. Otherwise, they can close and just distribute, and the creator and anybody else who is involved in this RFI gets notified of that resolution. Now, there is one more workflow, and that's with adding a coordinator in the middle. So RFIs start their life in the same exact way. Whoever has the capabilities to create it does so. If they're not the manager, it starts as draft. Otherwise, the manager creates it or converts it to an open RFI, assigns it a number. Then they assign it to a coordinator, and the coordinator has the ability to circumvent the entire reviewer. So they can respond on behalf of the reviewer to the manager, or they can say, nope, I need the architect to respond to this, and so they'll pass it to them instead. Otherwise, the workflow is pretty much the same. Now, additionally, within the templates and also when the project is set up, they've already kind of formulated who it should go to, what that default due date, if there is one, would be, and things like that. So all of these different metrics here would be automatically assigned, depending on if the project admin has gone through that much detail. But at a bare minimum, the coordinator and the default reviewer, even the default manager, could be automatically set. So you just create an RFI. You don't have to necessarily know who it goes to next. You just get it in the system, and then by and large, the system will navigate these RFIs for you, to save you that stress of kind of figuring out who and what and when and where. So that said, we already created an RFI from a markup on a drawing. We also created an RFI from an issue. You can create an RFI here. And then like we saw at the very beginning, we could tie those RFIs back into other things, just like we did with the issue, and we later put it onto a sheet. So again, you're not strictly held to, you have to do this and then this and then this. You can do it in a lot of different ways. You could do an RFI to a change or to an issue if you wanted to. Now I'm a manager, so I'm going to kind of change this a little bit. So it's in draft status, and I will do an RFI for maybe, we're missing some reinforcing callouts for the level 1 slab. So we'll just call that. I can add co-reviewers as well. Co-reviewers are people that may influence the response, but ultimately it comes down to one person having that final say, and they can hand it off as well, but somebody has to have kind of the official word. When do we need this responded by? So hey, we're planning on getting this stuff ordered, so we do need that pretty soon. Location, we'll just pick first floor since it applies to the overall first floor. Location details, whatever applies there. And again, we come to our question and suggested answer. What rebar do we need here? Similar to building A, whatever it might be. So then they can look at this and they say, okay, yeah, we didn't call out the reinforcing. You're looking at building A. Okay, I see what was designated there. Now I know how to respond. Okay, and then same thing that we saw before. You can add references, cost, schedule, impact, priorities. If it is related to a specific discipline, we can call that out. Category that it's related to, maybe documentation incomplete. You don't necessarily have to fill out all of these things below, but if you have the information, I would say go ahead and fill that out. And a lot of these are custom anyway, but we go ahead and create that RFI. So now it's in draft mode. It's in my court because I'm the default manager for this type. And I can look at it and say, okay, yeah, this looks like a good question. I'll go ahead and submit to the coordinator. So it's going to go to Sam, but I want to send it to Brian instead. I can give it an official due date. Like I think 2 weeks is a little bit much, so we'll set it to that. I'll hit submit, and now it's in Brian's court. So Brian's the coordinator. He might already have the answer. If he doesn't, he wants to send it on to the structural engineer or the architect who sends it to the structural engineer. However those communication chains work, you can do that. I can also come into here, and here's kind of an additional thing, is I can say, hey, Blake, please help coordinate this one. So this isn't assigning it to Blake. It's just putting it on his radar. Otherwise, he wouldn't see this RFI at all. But now he's just got an email. He's not officially involved here by any extent, but I've just kind of notified him. So it's on his radar. He can go to the RFIs and see it now. He just got an email, so he can call up Brian and kind of ask where we are. So I'm going to put on my Brian hat real quick. I look at it. Okay, everything's good. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and add a sheet reference to it, and maybe the specs or something like that. We'll do maybe those 3 sheets as references for it. We don't have reinforcing information on any of those sheets. Okay, we're ready to go. I'm going to send it to the structural engineer. One thing I totally skipped was when I opened it, you can assign a number. So this would be, the next in line. What you can't do here is give it a number that's already been taken by something else. So every RFI has to have a unique number. But I could do, this has something to do with concrete, so I'll leave 3 on there. And maybe this is my first rebar question. So you could number it however you want, just kind of figure out what your system should be for numbering. I imagine Myron already has one. You can fill that out. If you find out that the architect is using their own build instance and they've got their own thing, you can kind of do that. So then it's easier to communicate apples to apples between your system and theirs, so they know what one you're talking about and vice versa. You could do that. But yeah, otherwise we're ready to go. We can send this for review. Before I open it, I could have changed that workflow to be structural only, and it would have gone to different people and stuff like that. But that's more of the RFI managers kind of monitor that stuff and they traffic accordingly. But otherwise, I'll go ahead and forward to review. I'm listed as the default reviewer, not because I created it, but because of the way the project's set up. So I'll go ahead and assign this one to Blake for review officially. Forward that. So Blake's going to look at it. Now, a couple of options here. Blake can just reply to the email that he just received, and it'll come in here as his official response. It also has a link, so if he's a project member, he can click that link and it'll open up this RFI just as we see here. And maybe he does. Maybe he looks at it and says, yeah, this isn't really for me. This is for the structural engineers, so I can do something like this, whatever the structural engineer's email is, send that to them, and it's going to email an external participant this email over here. So now that did go to my official email inbox. I can go to my email, just reply to the email, add any attachments, and then it comes in here as an official response. Otherwise, I can say my response is going to be an answer, or no, I'm going to reject it. We've already answered that in the bulletins last week. We'll do number 4 at whatever. Put that information in, submit. And we don't necessarily both have to respond. We can go ahead and just kind of take it. So I can skip Blake, or Blake can also provide his response. So we can do skip if that was the case. And then it goes back into Brian's court because he's the RFI manager, just to make sure, okay, yeah, we've got the information that we need. I see Blake skipped, but he delegated to the structural engineer. So, okay, we're good. Submit official response. It looks like that. On behalf of this email, this is kind of what that response is. And then we go ahead and hit submit. Now, at the very, very end, it goes to, sorry, Brian was, I forgot the roles. Brian was the coordinator. I'm sorry. I'm the manager. So the manager looks at it, says, okay, it's officially reviewed. Everybody's kind of seen it. Yeah, that's not the information that I need. That doesn't match. I can return it to Brian, and then he can kind of figure out what needs to be done, or I can close and distribute. And at that point, it goes to everybody that was involved, including the creator of the RFI. We can save it to a folder in files. It'll automatically manage those files for us. And then we close that RFI. So I'll go and say, okay, project files. I don't know if we have one already for this, but we'll do as built in this case. So now it's actually creating a PDF of this RFI and putting in the files for us, so it's easier to find later. So that's kind of the basic process for RFIs. This reopen button won't always be available. That is a project admin setting, but any questions on RFIs before we jump to submittals?
So I think that was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna do one piece of all those steps, and that is create an RFI. Right? So it's good that you can see the back end and how flexible it is, but that's really an project admin's duty. The other thing that I hope you caught was you can answer RFIs via email. So if you got, maybe the project site isn't quite baked out yet and we don't have everybody invited, you're early on. The architect isn't even in the project yet. So you can do it through email and still get a record. So those two things I guess I wanted to make sure you caught.
Yeah, yep. Perfect. All right. Ready to move on to submittals then?
Yep.
Thankfully, the process with submittals is kind of similar to RFIs, but it's a lot more structured in terms of how it's set up. Now, the submittal manager will initially create the submittal log, and then they assign the items to the responsible contractor. So whoever has to produce the the documentation and everything for compliance on those submittal items. So what they can do is they can take a batch of these things. You can filter and search and all that kind of stuff that we did before. Grab all of these, then they can bulk assign it to responsible contractor. If they find that, hey, they're grabbing the same few and moving them to different people, you can go ahead and create a package for that. It's not required. Just keep in mind the package is really just an envelope or a conveyance tool for kind of moving things around. So that's kind of how packages work. It's just a little envelope that helps you quickly filter to the same items. But that said, I'm going to go to this one because it's in my court. Even if they're in a package, each submittal item is kind of treated individually. So just kind of keep that in mind. And actually, this one's already got a Rev 0 in here. So let me find a new one. So I'm going to filter by draft. And yeah, I'll just assign this one to me so you can see the process here. So created the submittal log. I've got this item pulled out of the specs, ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and assign it to responsible contractor. That'll be me. And I need this based off of our timeline submitted by next week. I can add a specific number to this if I wanted to. Actually pay attention to what section, so 26. Looks like I've already done number 1 there, so I'll do number 2. So this would be our submittal 2602. So now it's in my court. So I'm sorry, I'm going to wear multiple hats here, so you're going to see my name in a lot of these different steps. I don't mean to be confusing here, but as the responsible contractor, now what I need to do is take my documentation and apply it to my submittal so that I can get it ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and grab, in my other window here, I've got some sheets, some PDFs. Now, one thing you might notice is that it's asking me to submit. I haven't uploaded anything just yet. Now in references, I can come into here and I can reference other parts of the project, but that's just references. Those aren't my actual submittal. In order for me to deliver my submitted items, I start by clicking submit. And I can drag and drop files here. I'll just drag and drop a PDF here. It can be multiple files, it doesn't have to be just the one. Now, based off of how submittals are set up in this project, it's going to go to Brian, and then Brian can decide what needs to happen after that. So I'll go ahead and hit done. Now it's in Brian's review list. Notice I can't click on this button just yet. That means I need to create a workflow first. Now in your templates, or in your projects, which comes from the templates, I do encourage you to have workflows already established, so then you don't have to worry about who gets what and when and kind of what that order looks like. You can just say, well, it's this type of submittal, have at it. So I'm going to go ahead and add a review workflow. I'm sorry, not that way. I'm going to choose a template. You can do it manually if you wanted to for every single submittal item. You can absolutely do that. But I'm going to grab a template and say, okay, this one has to do with none of these, but the closest I'll pick electrical. So notice that it's going to, once Brian is okay with it, he's the submittal manager, it's going to go to me, and then it's going to go to me just because of how this thing is set up. Sorry, Brian, I agree. We gotta update the training project. It's become kind of cluttered, but anyway, hopefully everybody's following so far. In addition to those assignments, again, you can add comments, or you can mention other people without them being officially involved, but kind of on the periphery there. So now that I've got a workflow established, I can go ahead and submit for review. So this button is available. And it opens up this little check box here where I've got, okay, it's going to go to this person in line. Brian is going to be optionally a reviewer there, but I'm required. What date do we need it? Here's that number. We're just confirming the number. We've got some people that are being CC'd on it. I can add a note. I can also add a stamp just indicating that I've reviewed it. And there's a couple ways to do that. One, I can hit copy, so it'll copy their attachment down into my step. Or I can just go into theirs and save whatever I do to my step. So I'll show you both. So I'm going to do copy attachment. So notice it just kind of clones that guy down here. And I've got my Brian hat on right now. I'll go into my copy of it. And I can use the built-in cover page if I wanted to. I can upload a custom cover page, which is just, you know, a PDF of that, or I can do a blank cover page if I wanted to. I'll just do the built-in one so you can see that. So here's what the built-in one looks like. It's got, you know, the Myron logo, all this kind of stuff, and then you have the drawing. Now you can do markups on this drawing as well, but here's the stamp tool that I wanted to show you. So I'm going to go ahead and do stamp. And I'll do, this was reviewed by Myron, change this to blue. If I wanted to, I can add text. You don't have to. Create a stamp. Put that onto our cover page over here, make it, you know, whatever location and size we needed to. Save my progress. And what it does is it takes the file name and it just puts a little date time stamp at the end of that file name. So I'll go ahead and hit save. And then so here's the original, and then here's the one that I marked up. Okay. You don't have to have both. It's just one of the things that you can do. And I'll hit done. So now it's in the reviewer's hands, which happens to also be me. So Brian or I could look at it. It's just I have to review. So I'm the required reviewer. So I'll take a look at that. Okay, so I see the one that was marked up in Brian's step. I see the little cover page in here. But I could go in and, you know, make all kinds of markups. Got a lot of different graphics options on how you want that to be. You can add, you know, kind of this polygon sort of a thing here with, you know, filled in with whatever colors your favorite there. That's an awful color. Anyway, so you can do whatever you need to do for those markups. And then once you're done with that, same thing, you can add another stamp. And we'll say this was approved as noted. And put a little thing there. Again, you can add additional text if you want. Create that stamp. You can add another cover page. So if each company kind of has to have their own cover page, you can certainly do that. Otherwise, I'll move my stamp to match Brian's, save my changes. And then now I've got kind of my own copy here. I do have to remember to do my official response now. So my official response was approved as noted. This is just the one that I did a minute ago was because that's what's on the stamp. So I'll do that. And then so the next person in line looks at it, they do their thing. I'm good with whatever they said. Oops. So I'll copy that to my step. But you know what? That's we'll say revise and resubmit for this. So I understand the markups, but we really do need to have that in the drawing. So we'll do a revise and resubmit. Now it goes back to Brian, the submittal manager, and he looks at it and says, okay, well, they're saying approved here, but revise and resubmit here. They can either create a new revision, they can step it back if they, you know, want to kind of have somebody amend whatever their feedback was so far, or they can just close and distribute it. Maybe one approval is enough. So this is fun, but just to kind of show you what happens here, if you just keep your eye on this area here, when I create a new revision, it's going to go back to the original responsible contractor. We're going to give it a new due date. And so the whole process kind of resets from the beginning, but now we have Rev 0, everything that happened there, including all the markups. And then Rev 1, we're kind of starting over again. And you can keep track of how many revisions you've had and all the comments and stuff like that. So pretty painless process, pretty thought out in terms of the workflow structures and things like that. But any questions or comments on RFIs and submittals?
So once again, you got to see the whole process from the back end into the reviewer. But if you remember, your part is you're going to get an email. You're going to click it, and a blue button is going to say, drag your files, you know, make your, submit your files here. And you can either mark them up and stamp it in the tool, or you can mark up and stamp it in Bluebeam and drag it in. Whatever workflow works best. You don't have to leave the tool, but you could if you wanted.
Yep, absolutely. All right.
Because I'm guessing you're going to be telling other people.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about meetings real quick, and then we'll jump to schedule. And I think that'd be a good segue to go ahead and we'll skip assets and bridge. We kind of covered that already, unless you wanted to cover that, Brian. And we'll go
Nope.
ahead and jump to mobile just for
Yep.
time. Okay. So meetings. So there's the meetings tool over here. This create meetings button up here, it's a little bit misleading. What it does is it establishes a series. So if you have kind of an ongoing meeting with your team, or you've got your foreman meetings, or whatever it might be. I think we've got OAC meetings in there. You don't have to necessarily click this button every single time. You can establish a series. And so what that does is you have your first iteration all the way to the newest one. So I'll go ahead and open that up. If you click create meeting, it just has you add a name and a Teams link and all that kind of stuff if you have it. But here was that first meeting for the foreman meetings with 46 references. I can see all the submittal updates over here. I don't have to go out to submittals. I can see that right here from the meeting. Concrete had three things that were brought up. Again, I can see the status there. Now notice that some are ongoing, closed, and open. Let's go to the second one and see what happened there. So poly was ongoing, concrete was closed, and floor one was open. Anything that's open and ongoing automatically gets copied to the next meeting in that series. Anything that's closed just kind of stays where it was closed. It doesn't carry over. Now, if we move all the way to the current one, we have just kind of this running dialogue. Now, at any point, you can add additional topics here. And then within those topics, you can add other items for discussion. And then each of those items, if you click these three dots, you can add references to other bits and pieces in the project. And I'm sorry, I need to step away real quick.
Right. So we get meeting minutes. I do want him to touch on reports because there is the ability to create any report you want for yourself and then schedule it to keep coming back to you automatically. I don't think he talked about that. So auto scheduling of reporting. And then the mobile's really quick because it is exactly what you see here. There isn't too much. There's
All right.
less full of things that are not on the mobile that you'd see on the desktop.
Yeah, that's true. Sorry for that.
No worries.
With this too, you can also check attendance, whoever's here. You can add overall references and stuff like that. But the thing I like about it is whatever we're talking about, if there's references to other parts of the project, I can see that right here in the meeting. I don't have to go hunt for it externally and then come back. And then, yeah, setting up the schedules, the Teams link, all that kind of stuff. It's pretty easy to do. Now in time, the items that you discuss across all your meetings gonna kind of build a long list. So you can go to items. You can see all the items that were talked about in meetings that you were in. And then you can filter this based off of, your action items or the due date or something like that. So here's 5 items that, we talked about in a few different meetings that I was in. So that's kind of, how that works and how you can sort of follow up and do all those sorts of things. So pretty good tool. All right, so moving on now to schedule. So this starts its life in either P6 or Microsoft Project. You can have multiple schedules in a project. The admins can assign certain people to manage all schedules, and then you can also set permissions to where certain people manage certain schedules and then also make them private too. So you can have some schedules restricted or some schedules public in terms of anybody in the project. So we'll go to this restricted schedule over here. Again, it was created in P6 or Microsoft Project and then loaded into here. You can see the entire thing. You can show it in list and Gantt view, or just the Gantt, or just the list of the activities. You can search for activities. So if there's a specific thing you want to search for, you can do that. You can also do quick looks. So if you're doing your look ahead, you can say, okay, back 1 week, ahead 2. Apparently I added an extra filter in there somewhere. Oh no, I think this schedule is a little older. So yeah, there's nothing coming up. But yeah, so it's a couple of years old. But anyway, so you have those kinds of things to just view it. Now where the schedule tool becomes more powerful is one in the scheduling tool, or sorry, the suggestions tool, but then also in the references. So I can pick any of these items, and here's all the data that's related to it, including if it's changed over time. I can visualize that too. So if the schedule was ever changed, I can also compare that and see what those changes are. But if I go to references up here, I can add references from any of these 2 panels to that one item. And we did it earlier with, I think it was a RFI. But you could do that with any of these items, is create references there as well. So it actually has a living relationship to other parts of the project workflows. So that's references. Now on suggestions, what you can do if you have permissions to do this is switch from view mode to suggestion mode. Now it doesn't actually edit anything. You're just kind of putting your opinion to this, or kind of your updates. We'll say, okay, instead of it starting on the 9th, it actually was going to start on the 23rd. We have this one that it was planned for the 17th, but we did that on the 21st, and so on. We could say that this one was delayed. In fact, if I go to details, I can pick a root cause for why it was delayed, and so on. So I'm kind of going through the schedule, providing my updates on dates, delays, cost impacts, and those sorts of things. And then I can review all of my suggestions in this session here, and then I can go ahead and submit that to the manager. Now, as the schedule manager, they can come to this suggestions log. They can review these suggestions and then decide how they're going to respond. Again, it doesn't update it. It's just kind of saying how they're going to respond to it. And then later when they go and upload a new version of the P6 or the Microsoft project schedule, by clicking this button here, hopefully it incorporates, whatever is reflected on those suggestion reactions. Anything else on schedule before we go ahead and jump to mobile?
So before we leave, can we go to reports real quick?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So I just want to show everybody that if you wanted to create a report, you can schedule it to be recurring.
Yeah, that's right. So once you do kind of start a report, you can create a template from it. Once you have a template, then you can go ahead and grab a template. So this is the one we created earlier. And we could say, we'll just schedule this report to happen. And maybe we want it to be weekly or monthly. We'll do every Friday at 3 p.m. I want it to go to certain members of the project, and you can do users, roles, or companies. And so I could say, okay, US CAD every, we'll just do Friday, not Tuesday. Friday at 3 p.m. Send it there, and then you could provide a message into that, or sorry, other people that are not in the project, and a message. This send others is kind of new. So this could be external people that are not in the project, provide a message, and then save that schedule. And so now it's just a recurring thing that if it matches the filters that we created earlier for that was filtered by assigned to project manager, it's going to automatically send me an email with that report every single Friday. Now, earlier we looked at creating a report from issues and RFIs and things. You can also create a report from here and sort of start it. So you click create report. it'll grab the templates that are already there. So we'll just do, maybe RFI summary. You can add additional filters. So this one is filtered by those statuses. I can filter by falling court is me. Set how you want it sorted, and if you want a cover page and a table of contents and all that kind of stuff. You can also do an Excel format of this. Of course, you're not going to have a cover. Well, it'll have a tab with a cover page, but it's just going to look a little different in the output. But otherwise, we hit run report. And then it says, do you want this to run again or scheduled? And we'll say, yeah, we'll go ahead and schedule it later on. RFIs assigned to me. And then run and save that. And then now it's going to be, kind of this repeat thing that we can set up. So it created a template from those filters that we just set. So you can create a new template from that. All right. Any other items I should kind of talk about, Brian?
Yeah, let's just click on bridge, and this is just food for thought because we have self-perform on the line, and I want to talk about what all our trade partners are doing. So a lot of our trade partners are in ACC, and the reason they love bridge and our design partners are in ACC, and the reason they love bridge is because they no longer have to live in the GC site. They can have their own project with their own folders, their own permissions, their own everything. And that way, what happens is, let's say in August, let's say Ahern, they have an ACC site, but all they want to share with us is this one folder on their own site called for Myron. And we bridge that over to ours, and we always have their information. And then they bridge back what matters to them, the RFIs, the submittals, the drawings, right? And they always have it in their own location. So food for thought, being self-perform. Do you want to be mixed with civil? Now, obviously this only works for ACC today, but food for thought as you think about future state, or even an ACC project that you're on today. It might be another way to think about or try to get information to you in a more consistent manner.
You mean like bridging from like
The civil project in
Like-
Myron
Okay.
to your own self-perform project.
I mean, there's a roundabout way, but I'm at the bottom. And then we go up to self-perform. Let's try this. Basically, like we're at the bottom, Wells is in the middle, but Myron's a subcontractor of Wells.
Oh, you're on Project Cheetah. Are you talking about Cheetah or which one
No.
are you talking about?
Galloway.
Oh, Galloway.
Galloway is one, so it's kind of like it'd be easier to like bridge all of us together in one way or another.
Exactly. And we are doing that on projects. So Frank Productions, we're doing that today. We've got 3 or 4 trade partners that are bridging from both Myron and the design team. And we're bridging from design team and from the partners. So everybody is bridging to each other. It's pretty unique. But it's just a little bit of foresight into
It would be helpful.
where I think the industry is going in time.
Yeah.
All right, I'm done with my little sidebar.
All right. No, that's great. All right. Yeah, Bridge is such a great utility. They're definitely looking for feedback on how to expand that use and stuff like that. But even at a basic level, keeping projects in sync is really helpful. And then yeah, we can do a special session on assets later, or something like that. But just for time, let's go ahead and jump over to mobile. So like Brian was saying, you know, most of what we talked about today, we can do in mobile. In fact, there's some areas, honestly, I kind of like better on mobile than on the web browser. So we'll look at that. So with mobile, first thing, you know, it's iOS or Android. If you have a Surface Pro, it's a little trickier to get those to work because that's Windows, it's not Android or iOS. If that's the case, you're in that situation, reach out to me and I'll tell you how you can get it to work properly. Just know that there's a mobile app for it, not the web browser on your mobile device. That's the web stuff that we've just been going through. It's going to be a totally different type of experience using the mobile application. So when you go on the job site, don't use the web browser. It's danger, Will Robinson. There's a lot of problems that you bring with that. Use the mobile app for anything that's on site. And one of the reasons for that is the mobile app is designed and engineered to work offline. You know, so you can synchronize the data that you need to your mobile app or your mobile device, go out there on the job site, collect the data that you need, make your updates, connect to Wi-Fi whenever it's possible, and then your updates kind of come and go. So that's the benefit of using the mobile app. If you use the web browser on site, you'll probably lose connectivity here and there, and it's inevitable at some point you're going to lose information too. So don't do it. Don't do the web browser on mobile device. Use the mobile app. The app is called Autodesk Construction Cloud. You can find it in the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. And then, yeah, we'll get kind of to the rest of these. Now, I do have I guess I timed out. I have my phone on my browser here. So this is my phone screen that we're looking at now. Now, when you first load this up on your mobile device, you probably won't have any projects. You can search by project name. You can also, if it's probably not going to be, you know, that many projects, you can just find it in the list, whatever is easiest for you. Now, when you first add it, there is this strong desire to want to click options. What I would just say for your first couple of projects, just forget that button's there. Just hit download, take the default options that are there. It's going to set you up for success as you're first learning it. Just so we can show you, when you click on options, it asks, do you want to do all files or no files? Generally, no files is best. If there's sheets and things like that in it, let me see if I can find one that has sheets. Yeah, it's going to ask you, do you want all sheets? Do you want all photos? Stuff like that. It's usually just a good idea to keep with those defaults. You know, yeah, here's some of the other options, because that's less stuff that your mobile device has to download. If you do all files, and if you think about how many files are on your project, it means literally all files. So all Revit files, all Navisworks files, all PDFs, all Excels. Every file that's ever been uploaded is what it means by all files. So usually not a good idea. All sheets, though, I can see that, because then we can, you know, overlay and compare the different versions and stuff like that. So that makes sense. Files doesn't make sense. Photos, it's usually a safe thing to do the last week or 2 weeks instead of every photo that's ever been taken. So you've got that option. You know, so that's why your first couple projects, just ignore the options thing and then just hit that download button over there. Now, over time, you're going to want to make sure that your mobile device is synced up, both incoming, so the data that you've collected, and then also before you got on the job site. And so if you can see this, it's got a little yellowish symbol there. It says there's updates available. It could be updates on my mobile device, which isn't usually the case. Most of my updates are around issues and stuff like that. Those do get pushed automatically when I connect to Wi-Fi. What this is largely around is there's stuff that other people have done, maybe even me, on the web browser or on their mobile device, that I need to update mine. So what you want to do is go ahead and hit that sync button. If you try to tap into the project, this little thing comes up and it says, hey, there's stuff that you haven't synced. It's very tempting to click that skip button, but that's super dangerous. It does damage the project in terms of, if you hit skip and you go out on the job site, you're going out there acknowledging that you're going out there with out-of-date information. So you're introducing conflicts to the job site. So don't click that skip button, even if it's super tempting, unless you're roaming around the office, you're in the office and you just want to pull up something that you were looking at yesterday. You're not really going to do any updates. That might be a safe thing, but just be in a practice of go ahead and tapping that update button. And if you have good sync practices, this shouldn't take very long at all. So that was pretty quick. Overall, on my device, I've got 1.53 gigabytes because I haven't downloaded all files is one thing. But in terms of synchronizing, what I recommend is a minimum of 3 times a day. If you do it more than that, that's fine. But those 3 times are when you first log in for the day, make sure your mobile device is still plugged into the charger. That is an important step. Set it to sync, go do your stand up, and then come back. It should be ready to go. The second time is midday when you do your lunch break or what have you. Plug it in, set it to sync, come back from lunch, it should be ready to go. And then the last time is at the end of the day. So before you clock out, plug your device into the charger, set it to sync, and then when you come back the next morning, it should be good. The reason for that is what that does is it creates those updates at most 4 hours old, not 4 days or 4 weeks old. If you've just got like a half day gap in there, which is a pretty safe minimum for that. So now that we're in this project, we can take a photo up there, and that's just me using the built-in camera and taking photos. It automatically gets associated with the project. So I can, tie them into things later on. We've also got our Sheets tool in here that, look at this, we've got all those markup tools that we did before right here inside of my web browser, or sorry, my mobile device. In fact, I can add references from my, didn't mean to create, from my mobile device as a markup onto the drawing from mobile. So mobile is super powerful in this platform. If I wanted to look at a different sheet, I just swipe left and right. And actually, do I have all the sheets there? Let's look. Yeah, it should have popped up, but anyway, swipe left and right. We can go between the sheets. We can also, if I swipe down, which I'm taking my finger and kind of going up and down like those TikToks that you watch late at night. So I'm going to swipe up, or sorry, move my finger down. So I'm swiping down. This is going to bring up the older version, the most adjacent previous version. So you can swipe through all the versions. It does have a little safety net here. It says, hey, you're trying to view an old version. I don't want you to work on this one. Just letting you know, do you want to view the newest version? So kind of go back to safety land. Do you want to compare it, or do you just want to look at that older version? So you've got some options there. Just to cut to the chase, I'll go ahead and do compare. And then it overlays them just like we did on the web browser. And I can come in here, but on the mobile device, we have one other tool, and that's being able to take a snapshot of the screen here. And I can take that and I can share that with someone else. I can save it in my files. I can email that little snapshot so they can take action on it. And you could take a screen cap, mark it up, and load that into photos too. But being able to do the overlay here on mobile and see those changes, I think is pretty powerful. A lot of the other workflows that we did are one-to-one with in terms of sheets on mobile, including the search capabilities or filtering to those tags that we created and stuff like that. Next, we come to our files. This is where it does take a little bit of practice, kind of building in the habit of what do I need to download to have on the job site. So any other files that are not sheets that you feel like, hey, I'm going to pull these things up so I can review that. That's where, after you do it a few times, you kind of understand what you need and you can kind of pre-vet it and have it all synced up. Otherwise, what you can do is go to a specific folder or file, and you can say, okay, I want this one to download. So if you just tap it while you're connected to Wi-Fi, it'll download it to your device. You can also say, hey, every time I sync, if there's a new version of this file, automatically put that on my device. And you can do this with folders as well. So that's going to be really helpful, where you have control over which file specifically you have on your mobile device, either during that sync or every time you sync. So you do have control over that. And then, yeah, you can open up this Revit file. So a lot of things that we were doing before. You can't assign issues on here just yet, but you can still open it up. You can, look at its sheets by tapping those three dots in the top right. So looking at other 3D views, the sheets, cropping up by level, all that kind of stuff you can do here. You can also walk through it. So if I kind of double tap, it will kind of zap me there. And then I can use this little joystick here to walk around. I can also tap on those shoes. And then now I'm in kind of the orbit mode again, but I can tap it one more time and click on this funny little ellipse kind of icon there. Now, wherever I move my phone, it points the camera in the 3D model to where I'm pointing that thing. So, that helps with like on-site coordination stuff. If you want to look up in a corridor ceiling or something and see kind of work that needs to be completed and verify it or what have you, then it helps with that. You can also tap this little button and change your levels. So if I wanted to go down a level, we can certainly do that. And then now I'll go back to my walk mode. Oops. And it kind of drops you down to the floor so you can, kind of walk around that way and zoom in. And I can tap on objects. I can look at the properties of things. I can, do all kinds of stuff. We just can't do, we can't do issues on mobile for the 3D files just yet. So that's one to-do list item for Autodesk. Jumping into our forms, I'll just do one that's already in progress. So again, here's that daily log, recording all that information that we were talking about earlier. This is going to be the more common interface for forms and issues and markups and stuff like that, because you'll be able to walk around the job site, take photos, and all these things in real time with that context as well. If we tap on more over here, we can see there's photos, but we can see the issues list. We can also create issues from here. Again, it doesn't necessarily have to be from sheets. You can do it from here. RFIs, same thing. We can check the list of RFIs, add updates, what have you. We can also create RFIs from here. Submittals is one deviation from that, where you can view the submittals and you can see the status of the submittals. You just can't act on anything. So you can't upload anything. You can't do markups. It's really just checking status of those submittals. Meetings is kind of similar. You can follow along. If you're the organizer, you can edit the information about the meeting itself, but mostly it's just kind of looking at what was discussed and those sorts of things. So meetings and submittals are a bit limited. Then we have the schedule here where we can look at, the different updates there. We can suggest updates from mobile. We can add references to other parts of the project from mobile and all of that. So assets, again, that's just a super powerful tool. I wish we had more time to show it, but you can pull up the information about specific units, update the installation data or the warranty data, add references in terms of punch list items, photos to verify installation or what have you. You can have a quality check or an inspection check form attached to it. And it does support barcodes too. So you can scan the nameplate. So then every time you go up to that unit, scan the nameplate again, it'll pull up your inspection form. You can check the status of that, follow up on any outstanding issues and take additional photos or RFIs or what have you as well. And then here's that project directory. So again, when somebody wants to call you, it is important, if you remember from the very beginning, that you update your phone number so they can call you at the right number. And then we have our locations that you can start to kind of look through. So this is your punch list. So if I go to the vestibule over here, I can see it's got 3 open issues, 3 assets in there. It does also support barcodes and QR codes. So if you all put QR codes inside of door frames, or door jams, I should say, you can leverage those same codes, add them into there. Sorry, my son really wants to get a hold of me. And then here's the punch list of items within that specific room. So that was a whirlwind, a lot to get to in a few minutes, but Brian, anything else that I should mention from mobile?
Yeah, so I guess the one thing for mobile is if you're taking photos on site, do it in the app. Don't have to download or upload. It just automatically goes in the library. But realize that today there are no permissions on the photos in the library. So those are available for everybody on the project to see. So that's kind of important. Definitely much easier to take photos in the app because you can reference them. They're all in there. But if there's any chance that you don't want those photos to be in the project, another reason to have your own site. All right, to keep your photos separate. But if you want those photos separate, then don't take them in the app. And then the last thing we need to do is probably step back, and probably if you stuck around this long, the most important piece of information is how to get help and learn if we miss something.